Chapter 240. At this moment, Huang Baixing opened his mouth and said indifferently, "Those with the illusory palace token can come over." As soon as he spoke, he instantly attracted everyone's attention. Leng Shiqi knew that he should go out. Hu Sanli said from the side, "I congratulate you in advance on your safe return." Leng Shiqi grunted again, took out the illusory palace token, and walked out of the crowd. There were 9 people similar to him. He quickly scanned the other 9 people, and 3 of them caught his attention. One was Lin Hui. At this time, Lin Hui's hair was half black and half white, and there was no expression on his face. The other was a person covered in a black robe. Leng Shiqi actually felt a familiar aura from that person. The last was a young woman wearing a black veil. Leng Shiqi saw that she didn't seem to be a rogue cultivator, and guessed that she didn't get the illusory palace token by herself. Leng Shiqi and the other 10 people handed over the illusory palace token. After verifying its authenticity, they stood aside and waited to enter the illusory spirit's secret realm. However, the strange thing was that until now, he hadn't sensed the aura of the other pendant. The other pendant was on Bing Shang's body. There was no aura now. Either Bing Shang put the pendant into her mustard seed bag, or something unexpected happened. Of course, he was more inclined to the former. After a while, the door in the air had completely opened, but it didn't look very stable. Huang Baixing took the lead to walk to the entrance of the secret realm. He held up the sky with one hand, and then the spirit chi of heaven and earth surged wildly again. Everyone felt that there was an endless aura of earth around them. A huge mysterious mark appeared on Huang Baixing's palm. At this moment, everyone felt as if they were facing a towering mountain. Leng Shiqi only glanced at the mark and felt a stabbing pain in his eyes. Even the illusory spirit world trembled a little. He quickly turned his head and didn't dare to look again. His heart was greatly shocked. Huang Baixing turned his hand and pushed. The mysterious mark majestically fell into the 7-colored crack at the entrance of the secret realm. The originally wriggling crack immediately stabilized. Huang Baixing was actually strengthening the entrance of the secret realm. After doing all this, Huang Baixing said, "You can go in now." Following which, the 50 Spirit Pulse Realm cultivators of the Mountain Sea sect stepped forward in unison. They first bowed to Huang Baixing before jumping into the rainbow-colored crack together. Next were the 2 first-class forces in Donglin County. They were the Tang family and the Wu family, and each of them had 20 people. Following closely behind were the people from the 1,000 Illusionary Sword sect. 20 people had also entered. Next were the 2nd and 3rd-rate sections. Among them, the people from Heavenly Cloud Tower, Luo Yu Manor and Hao Yi sect whispered something to each other before they entered. In the end, it was Leng Shiqi's turn. Leng Shiqi looked at the 7-colored crack and leaped into it with the spiritual energy under his feet. He suddenly felt that everything in front of him was blurry and dazzling colors. After a few breaths, he suddenly arrived at a spacious area. He quickly looked around and found that he was at the foot of a small mountain. The surrounding weeds had grown to his waist, and it looked slightly desolate. There was no sun or moon in the sky, only endless faint 7-colored light. It looked like a dream. However, the spiritual energy here was abnormally abundant, comparable to that of the Blood Clothing Pavilion's main pavilion. Leng Shiqi's eyes changed and he activated his supercilious eyes. Everything within a radius of 3 to 4 miles was within his field of vision. Not a single person? He muttered in surprise. Before him, at least hundreds of people had entered the secret realm, but there was no one near him. It could be seen that everyone had been scattered, which also meant that this secret realm was not small. In his opinion, since he and Bing Shang had things that could sense each other, the people from the other sects would naturally have them as well. It would not be long before they gathered together. He needed to try his best to get as many benefits as possible before the spirit cultivator sects gathered. Leng Shiqi raised his eyes and looked at the small mountain in front of him. There were some white buildings on it. He decided to go up and explore first. Since there was no one around, he simply rushed to the top of the mountain at full speed. After a while, Leng Shiqi arrived at the top of the mountain. However, his expression was not good because most of the buildings here had already collapsed. Moreover, there were many obvious signs of vandalism. Even the floor tiles on the ground had been lifted up quite a bit. Leng Shiqi did not know what to say. This place had clearly been explored by many waves of people. They were just short of digging 3 feet into the ground. Therefore, there probably would not be anything good here. However, it also meant that there would not be any danger here. Lang Shiqi still walked in and looked around. There were many houses here, which seemed to be the residence of the disciples. From the looks of it, it was rather simple. It was probably the residence of some disciples who were not valued. He strolled around, but in the end, he did not find anything. He only found a tattered book in the corner of the wall, which recorded some daily life scattered about. Lang Shiqi was curious about what happened 10,000 years ago, so he flipped through it a few times. From these broken words, it could be seen that although these disciples were not valued, they were still proud of their status and were full of reverence for the sect. However, what was the use of this to Lang Shiqi? He shook his head and looked into the distance. In the distance of the small mountain under his feet, there was a towering mountain peak. There might be something there. Then, Lang Shiqi did not delay any longer and immediately rushed to the mountain peak. However, as the saying goes, a mountain is far away. The mountain peak had always been in his field of vision, but he still had not reached it after flying for more than 2 hours. It was not until 4 hours later that he arrived at the foot of the mountain peak. Lang Shiqi stopped at this moment. Even if he did not open his Byakugan, he could sense a faint fluctuation of spirit energy coming from the mountainside. There was already someone there. And they were fighting. Lang Shiqi immediately put on a sour face. He could not forget that he was now Zhuoqiu. Fortunately, Zhuoqiu had learned many things, and was somewhat similar to Lang Shiqi. He had 2 swords on both sides of his waist. The sword was naturally the Qinglin saber, but the sword was only a level 3 spirit weapon. He did not dare to use the unpolished jade sword here. The sword symbol was too strong, and it was very easy to recognize. Many people had seen him take the unpolished jade sword back then. Lang Shiqi walked into the mountain peak with a straight face. He deliberately concealed his aura, intending to observe who was fighting and see if he could fish in troubled waters. However, not long after he walked out and was about to open his Byakugan, he immediately felt a gust of cold wind coming from behind him. He hurriedly turned around and unsheathed his spirit sword at the same time. The sword was like a long river that came menacingly, blocking a dagger that had approached him without him knowing. Chapter 241. It's you. Lang Shiqi also saw clearly that it was the veiled woman in black who attacked him. The black veil woman's eyes flashed. Her voice was not very delicate, but it had a mature charm. She smiled and said, "Uncle, your reaction is quite fast." Lang Shiqi's face was expressionless, but there was a ripple in his heart. Although he did not activate his supercilious eyes, his perception was not weak. But this woman was actually able to silently appear behind him. If he had not experienced countless life and death situations and had long been sensitive to danger, he was afraid that he would have been hit. He said in a deep voice, "Who are you? How dare you attack me?" "Oh, Uncle seems to be angry." The black veil woman did not answer his question, but teased him instead. Lang Shiqi's face darkened. He waved the spirit sword in his hand and used several completely different sword moves at the same time. Some were strong and fierce, some were soft like a whip, some were fast like a rainbow, and some were sharp. This was the 17 sword techniques of Mount Song that he used to the extreme. The black veil woman obviously did not expect that the seemingly ordinary rogue cultivator in front of her would be so fierce that even she found it a little difficult to resist. The black-veiled woman's dagger flew like a flower, and it actually condensed into a flower of spiritual energy in her hand. In an instant, it seemed as if countless petals scattered out, blocking all of Lang Shiqi's sword moves. Lang Shiqi's eyes narrowed. He could clearly feel that those spiritual energy flowers were condensed from extremely pure spiritual energy. This was definitely not the spiritual energy that an ordinary rogue cultivator could have. This woman's identity was not simple. However, Lang Shiqi did not want to delve into it. His sword moves were still constantly stabbing out and changing. At the same time, he quietly shot out a few invisible sword chi. The black veil woman was a little caught off guard by the sudden appearance of a few meridian-breaking sword chi. Even if the spiritual flower flowed and blocked the sword chi, her left sleeve was still shattered by the aftershock, revealing a jade arm. The black-veiled woman gritted her teeth and said, "Humph, Uncle looks so decent, but I didn't expect you to be this kind of trash." Lang Shiqi didn't say a word. With a swish, He pulled down the cloth from his clothes and covered his eyes. Then, he stretched out his left hand and beckoned forward. The black-veiled woman clenched her teeth so hard that they creaked. She had never been humiliated and looked down upon like this before. Her spiritual energy was dyed with a pitch-black color. This was the devil's spiritual energy. So she was actually a devil cultivator. The reason why Lang Shiqi covered his eyes was not because he wanted to be a gentleman, nor was it because he wanted to provoke the black-veiled woman. It was because this was the only way he could activate the Byakugan. The cloth covering his eyes happened to cover his eyes and the blue veins at the corners of his eyes. For Lang Shiqi, who had activated Byakugan, there was no problem with vision. Moreover, he could clearly see the flow of spiritual energy in the black-veiled woman's body. In the blink of an eye, the spirit flowers around the black-veiled woman all turned into pure black flowers of nirvana. The next moment, countless petals of nirvana rushed over. Lang Shiqi's sword shook out sword shadows, and in an instant, dozens of invisible unblocking meridian sword chis surged out. The unblocking meridian sword chis intertwined with the petals of nirvana. The sword chis crushed most of the petals, but the petals seemed to be endless. Lang Shiqi's sword move changed, and cold blue frost sword chis burst out from the blade. As soon as the sword chis came out, the nearby air was filled with cold air. The frost sword chis froze the petals of nirvana with the extreme coldness of the 10,000-year cold cave, causing all the petals to turn into ice crystals. It looked a little beautiful. The black-veiled woman's expression finally became serious. The strength of the rigid uncle in front of her was more and more beyond her expectations. In fact, at the beginning, she just wanted to test the strength of a rogue cultivator who could enter the illusory spirit's secret realm. Now it seemed that the other party was not weaker than her. The black-veiled woman came from an extraordinary background, so she still had some pride in her heart. However, she couldn't take down a rogue cultivator, which made her even more embarrassed. "Uncle, you're good. Take another move of mine." The black-veiled woman shouted, and the nirvana flowers frozen by Lang Shiqi exploded. In an instant, endless demonic energy exploded. Lang Shiqi was in the demonic energy, but he didn't resist. Instead, he put away the spirit sword and held the hilt of the Qing Lin saber with his right hand. Under his supercilious eyes, he clearly saw that there was no danger in the demonic energy. It was just a trick. The real danger was the black-veiled woman who was rapidly approaching. The black-veiled woman held a dagger in her hand, and petals flew in the air. In this beauty, there was a hidden killing intent. Lang Shiqi held the scabbard with his left hand and the hilt with his right hand. His body was slightly bent, making a slightly strange posture. It took a long time to describe, but in fact, the black-veiled woman had already arrived. However, before the black-veiled woman's dagger stabbed out, Lang Shiqi moved first. In the next moment, an extreme cyan saber light flashed and disappeared. The saber had returned to the scabbard, and the saber light disappeared like a flash in the pan. However, it was at this moment that the saber light cut through all the demonic energy, shattered the nirvana flowers, and broke the black-veiled woman's confidence. The black-veiled woman was unscathed, but the black veil on her face had been destroyed, revealing a beautiful face that was pure and enchanting. However, this face was full of horror. This was because the black-veiled woman knew best that the black veil she was wearing was not just a simple mask, but also a defensive spiritual weapon. And this spirit artifact was actually shattered in an instant. She also felt a lingering fear in her heart. If she didn't have this defensive spiritual weapon, she was afraid that she would have been beheaded by now. This move was the semi-finished product of Lang Shiqi's attempt to integrate the saber drawing technique into the full moon rapid light slash. But even if it was only a semi-finished product, its power was terrifying enough. He compressed the saber light that was originally like a full moon to the extreme, and poured it out the moment he drew the saber. It was a pity that he hadn't fully comprehended this move. Otherwise, even if the black-veiled woman had a defensive spiritual weapon, she would have died under the saber. Seeing the woman's true appearance, Lang Shiqi was not moved, but his eyes flashed with a trace of killing intent. A layer of cold sweat appeared on the black-veiled woman's back unconsciously. She knew that she would really die if they continued to fight. Immediately, the spiritual flowers around the black-veiled woman rotated, and she quickly flew away with a burst of fragrance. Looking at the speed of her escape, Lang Shiqi frowned. This woman's speed was really not slow. If he chased after her, he would have to waste a lot of time. After a slight hesitation, Leng Shiqi gave up on chasing after her. Now that he had just entered the secret realm, he had inexplicably fought a fight. He hadn't even seen a single treasure, and he had wasted a lot of his spiritual power in vain. Moreover, that woman was obviously a disciple of a large spirit cultivator sect. He didn't know what trump card she had, so he might not be able to kill her if he rashly chased after her. Taking a step back, even if he could kill that woman, he probably wouldn't feel good. It was better to go up the mountain and explore. Maybe he would even gain something. Then, Leng Shiqi took off the cloth covering his eyes and prepared to continue up the mountain. But who would have thought that the woman's hateful voice would come from afar? Uncle's kindness today. This little girl will definitely repay it in the future. She even emphasized the word repay. When Leng Shiqi heard this, he secretly shook his head. If he met her again, he wouldn't mind destroying her. Chapter 242. Leng Shiqi did not take the woman's words to heart. He took advantage of the situation and did not walk for long before he saw 6 spirit auras in his Byakugan vision. 5 of them were common spirit cultivators, but the last one was a little strange. It was obviously not a person, but a strange beast completely composed of spirit power. Leng Shiqi thought of the phantom beast that Husanli had mentioned. The phantom beast that was unique to the illusory spirit secret realm. Leng Shiqi saw that the phantom beast's spirit power was equivalent to a spirit cultivator at the 3rd level of the spirit pulse realm, but it was now under the siege of 5 spirit cultivators. Its spirit power was getting weaker and weaker, and it looked like it would be killed soon. He immediately retracted his aura and quietly approached the battle. After approaching, he found that the 5 people fighting the phantom beast were wearing 2 different outfits. It was obvious that they belonged to 2 different sections. One of them was from the Luoyu manor that Leng Shiqi had come into contact with. There were 3 people from the Luoyu manor, and 2 people from the other side were from the 3rd-rate sect, Skyfall Castle. Now the 5 of them were working together to kill a strange phantom beast that was completely red. The phantom beast did not seem to have a physical body and could change into any shape at will. Ordinary swords and sabers could not hurt it. However, spirit cultivators in the spirit pulse realm could already use their spirit power to leave their body. They had some means to hurt the phantom beast, but the effect was not very obvious. Therefore, the 5 of them had not completely killed the phantom beast after fighting for half a day. On the contrary, the phantom beast's attack was very important to them. If they were careless, they would be injured. Leng Shiqi hid in the dark and observed the phantom beast's attack methods as well as the cultivation and spirit techniques of the 5 people. 2 of the 3 people from the Luoyu manor were in the early stage of the spirit pulse realm, and the other was in the middle stage of the spirit pulse realm. He was an old man who used a sword. The 2 people from the Skyfall Castle were only in the early stage of the spirit pulse realm. These 5 people used sword chi, saber chi, fist chi, palm and other methods to attack the phantom beast. After slowly wearing it down, they finally killed the phantom beast. Once the phantom beast died, all of its spiritual energy did not dissipate. Instead, it condensed and finally formed a fist-sized spirit stone that exuded a faint 7-colored brilliance. It looked magnificent. When Leng Shiqi saw this item, he was shocked. Divine Illusion Spirit Stone. So I can obtain Divine Illusion Spirit Stones by killing illusion beasts. The appearance of the Divine Illusion Spirit Stone also surprised the 5 people. The middle-stage Spirit Pulse Realm old man said with joy, an early-stage Spirit Pulse Realm illusory beast actually formed a Divine Illusion Spirit Stone. Haha, what a pleasant surprise. Hearing this, Leng Shiqi also understood that not all illusion beasts had Divine Fantasy Spirit Stones. However, as soon as the Spirit Stone appeared, the atmosphere changed. Not only did Luoyu Manor have 3 people, they even had an extra Spirit Pulse stage Spirit Cultivator. They were determined to obtain the Divine Illusion Spirit Stone. The 2 people from Skyfall Castle looked at each other and saw the helplessness in each other's eyes. Right now they were inferior. They could not fight for this Divine Illusion Spirit Stone, nor could they fight for it. The skinny one of the 2 said to the old man from Luoyu Manor, Mr. Luo-yi, the 2 of us will give this Divine Illusion Spirit Stone to you. However, the 2 of us still have to go up and explore this mountain. Luo-yi directly picked up the Divine Illusion Spirit Stone and put it into his mustard seed bag. Then he said, it's good that we go up together. We can take care of each other. When Leng Shiqi heard this, he guessed Luo Yi's thoughts. They had already encountered an illusion beast halfway up the mountain, who knew what dangers there would be if they went up. The reason why Luo Yi allowed the people from Skyfall Castle to go up was to let them take the risk. As for Leng Shiqi, those 5 people were also going to be struck by lightning. He directly sank into the ground and followed behind them from afar. However, among the 5 people, there was a person from Luo Yu Manor who was also slowly walking at the back. From time to time, he would look around, causing Leng Shiqi to be even more careful in hiding himself. On the mountain peak stood a dilapidated palace. After tens of thousands of years of erosion and more than 10 waves of spirit cultivators, this palace was already dilapidated beyond recognition. Even so, one could faintly feel a trace of grandeur. The few of them stepped into the palace together and immediately saw dozens of corpses lying in the main hall. Some of the corpses had already turned into white bones, and some of the flesh had not completely rotted. It was obvious that they had crossed a long distance. At the same time, it also meant that there was an unknown danger here. Both sides immediately became vigilant. Luo Yi's expression was grave as he walked in front of a skeleton. The clothes on the skeleton had not completely rotted, and were actually somewhat similar to his clothes. "This is my sect's ancestor." Luo Yi's face darkened as he put away the skeleton. At this time the person beside him said, "Senior brother Luo, look over there." Luo Yi heard this and turned to look. He saw an open door on the right side of the main hall, but he did not know where it led to. "Junior brother Yu, junior brother Chao, let's go take a look," Luo Yi said. The person who discovered the door, which was the spirit cultivator surnamed Yu, had played a trick. He saw that the door had been opened and there were no restrictions. In order to guard against the people from Skyfall Castle, he took the lead and rushed into the door. However, just as his body passed through the door, he saw a flash of green light and he stopped in place. Luo Yi and the spirit cultivator surnamed Chao's face changed slightly. They hurriedly went forward, but they did not dare to touch the spirit cultivator surnamed Yu. Looking carefully, the spirit cultivator surnamed Yu's face was changing all kinds of expressions. Sometimes he was crying, sometimes he was laughing, sometimes he was angry, sometimes he was sad. Luo Yi sighed and said, "AI, junior brother Yu is too impatient. He has already fallen into an illusion." The spirit cultivator surnamed Chao frowned and said, "But there was clearly no array restriction here just now. Why did junior brother Yu suddenly become like this? This is the most dangerous place in the illusory spirit secret realm. You don't even know where the illusion array will appear." Luo Yi continued, "Now that we can't help, we can only rely on junior brother Yu." At this time, the other 2 people from Skyfall Castle had other thoughts. They took advantage of the fact that Luo Yi and the spirit cultivator surnamed Chao's attention was not on them. The 2 of them suddenly burst out with powerful spirit energy. They attacked with a fist and a palm respectively. The fist was as heavy as a mountain, the palm wind was as light as the wind, and the 2 of them actually complemented each other, causing the power to increase by 30%. The target of the fist and palm wind was the spirit cultivator surnamed Yu, who was trapped in the illusion. Seeing this, Luo Yi flew into a rage and shouted, "Humph, you're courting death!" Immediately, his spirit sword tore through the sky and slashed down. For a moment, the entire hall was filled with sword intent. However, at this moment, an extremely thin sword blade suddenly pierced through his protective spirit chi and stabbed into his back. Chapter 243. Puchi. The blade pierced into Luo Yi's back, and the one who did it was the spirit cultivator surnamed Chao, who was standing beside him. At the same time, the 2 from Skyfall Castle suddenly turned their attacks towards Luo Yi. So their real target was Luo Yi. Luo Yi's old face was gloomy as he bellowed, "Chao Mang, you dare to betray Luo Yu Manor? Humph, you better mind your own business." Chao Mang revealed a cold smile as he pulled out his sword and retreated. The moment he pulled out his sword, a line of blood appeared. Luo Yi was suddenly injured, the sword intent and sword chi that he had just condensed dissipated, and at this time, the fist and palm had already arrived. Luo Yi did not care about anything else. He took out a dark green broken sword from his mustard seed bag. Although it was a broken sword, the moment it appeared, it gave people a feeling of extreme sharpness. He held the broken sword in his hand, his face revealing a sinister smile. Dang! The moment the sword appeared, A dark green sword aura that was close to 20 feet long shot out from the broken sword. The sword light sprinkled down and directly broke the fists and palms of the two people from the Skyfall Castle, and blasted them away. His spirit pulse intermediate stage cultivation had been fully displayed, but even though he had forced the two of them to retreat, his face had clearly turned pale. Chao Mang, who had just retreated, the thin sword in his hand was like a venomous snake that had been hiding for a long time, finding the gap in Luo Yi's weakness and thrusting towards him. His sword did not have any strong sword chi, nor did it have a ferocious sword aura. He had gathered all his spirit energy at the tip of the sword, using that to break through. His sword was aimed at Luo Yi's back. Luo Yi did not turn around. The sword aura that was like a waterfall swung over, once again blocking the attack. However, he was injured. Continuously using the broken sword's power had consumed a lot of his energy. Adding on the fact that he was already old, he could not withstand continuous fierce battles. After a short while, he was finally besieged by the three of them and died with a grievance. Of course, the three of them were injured as well. Leng Shiqi, who was outside the hall, sneered when he saw this scene. However, he did not look surprised because this kind of drama was very common on Blood Mist Island. As for why Chao Mang had betrayed him, Leng Shiqi didn't know the exact reason, but at the end of the day, it was nothing more than benefits. The reason why he didn't go underground was because he didn't know what material the palace was made of. His hand of the earth couldn't penetrate it at all. Fortunately, he had his supercilious eyes activated. Even if he didn't go in, he could still see the situation inside. Following that, the spirit cultivator surnamed Yu, who had already fallen into the illusion, was killed by the three without any resistance. Chao Mang picked up Luo Yi's dark green broken sword and mustard seed pouch and said with a smile, "Brother Tang Yuan, Brother Lu Can, I look forward to working with you." Tang Yuan was the thin man from the Skyfall Castle. He replied, "Haha, Brother Chao, you won't be able to run away from the elder position this time. Congratulations. Congratulations. You're too kind. Brother Tang, if you bring the heads of these two back, you'll definitely be rewarded." Chao Mang waved his hand and said. Lu Can then said, "Thinking back to the time when us brothers entered different spirit cultivator sects, it was a wise choice." Tang Yuan chuckled. "That's natural. All right, let's not talk anymore. Let's go in and explore." Following that, the three of them entered the door. Leng Shiqi also quietly entered the hall and looked at the door with a burning gaze. He thought to himself, supercilious eyes can't see through the door. There should be something good inside. His Byakugan had lost its effect several times in Boy Wanhu's tomb. Those powerful formations could block the Byakugan's prying eyes. There was clearly such a formation behind the door. After Chao Mang and the other two entered, they found themselves in a side hall. In the center of the side hall was an empty space with a radius of 6 meters. The empty space was charred black and there were many traces of battle left behind. Strangely, there were no corpses. Seeing this, the three of them had ugly expressions. It was clear that someone had been here long ago and had fought over something. Chao Mang said in a low voice, "Let's split up and search. There might be something left behind." The other two didn't say anything. They spread out and started to search around. Outside the door, Leng Shiqi looked at the door. His supercilious eyes couldn't see anyone coming up the mountain. In other words, there were only the four of them here. At this moment, a crazy idea appeared in his mind. That was to kill the three of them and take everything here for himself. This idea seemed crazy, but in reality, it was not impossible. First of all, the three of them had fought the illusion beasts and surrounded Luo Yi. They must have used up a lot of their spirit energy and were injured. It wasn't impossible for him to do it if he didn't plan it. Leng Shiqi's eyes flashed with killing intent. He began to secretly set up his plan. Inside the side hall, Chao Mang impatiently kicked away a pair of junk. His patience was almost worn out. He had practically searched the entire side hall but didn't find anything. On the other hand, Tang Yuan and Lu Can had picked up a few valuable items. But just as he was about to turn around, he stilled. This is? Chao Mang pulled out a pile of messy items and found a silver paper. He patted away the thick layer of dust on it and saw the words on it. Soon after, his pupils abruptly shrank as he hurriedly stuffed the paper into his mustard seed bag. But this action fell into Tang Yuan's eyes. He brought Lu Kan closer and said, "Brother Chao, your harvest is great." Chao Mang grimaced. "What harvest? We didn't even have a single strand of hair left." "Is that so?" Tang Yuan sneered. Chao Mang raised an eyebrow. "What? Brother Tang doesn't believe me. What are you saying?" "How could I not believe Brother Chao? But we already agreed to share blessings. Brother Lu and I didn't touch Luo Yi's sword and mustard seed bag at all. Now that Brother Chao has obtained something good but isn't willing to share it with us, isn't that a little unreasonable?" Tang Yuan's tone grew colder and colder as he drew closer to Lu Kan. Chao Mang's heart sank. If he had obtained an ordinary treasure, it would have been fine to share it with them. But if he could take this item out, he would have wealth and resources he could never accumulate in his entire life. At that time, his cultivation would naturally soar. In the future, it would not be impossible for him to establish his own sect. But at this time, Chao Mang's face suddenly filled with fear. He trembled as he pointed behind Tang Yuan and Lu Kan. There's a ghost." Tang Yuan and Lu Kan couldn't help but laugh. "Brother Chao, this trick of yours is too laughable. Do you think we're 3 years old?" Lu Kan also agreed. "That's right. Hand over the item and we'll still be brothers. Otherwise, don't blame us for being ruthless." But what they didn't expect was that a ghost formed from evil energy would really appear behind them. Chapter 244. Behind Tang Yuan and Lu Kan, there was a monster that was neither a monster nor a ghost that was neither a monster nor a ghost. Its entire body was covered in gray mist, looking incomparably fierce. Following this, the monster opened its mouth, which was actually as big as a door. Chao Mang saw all of this and he could no longer care about Tang Yuan and Lu Kan. He released his protective spiritual energy and took out the dark green broken sword. Tang Yuan and Lu Kan thought that Chao Mang would go all out against them, but they could see a trace of fear in Chao Mang's eyes. At this moment, layers of gray ripples came out of the gray monster's mouth. The strange thing was that there were faint cries coming from these ripples. What was even more terrifying was that these cries seemed to be the cries of children. The monster had appeared without a sound, and Tang Yuan and Lu Kan's attention had been focused on Chao Mang. Therefore, the two of them were instantly drowned by the ripples. Their minds were filled with cries and howls, and even began to stir up all sorts of negative emotions in their bodies. Pain, anger, depression, sadness. The endless negative emotions were about to drive them crazy. The gray ripples continued to seep into their bodies as streams of evil qi invaded their bodies and corroded them. This was a dual torture of the physical body and mind. This was the 4th-level spiritual technique, the Evil Sky Morning Curse. Of the 3 of them, only Chao Mang released sword qi from the broken sword to block a portion of the gray ripples, but even like this, his expression was filled with pain. Only they did not know if this monster was originally in this side hall or if it was made by someone. No matter where this monster came from, they had to leave first. Chao Mang only wanted to leave this place as soon as possible, even leaving the illusory spirit secret realm. The broken sword in his hand suddenly released a strong dark green sword glow, forcefully creating an opening in the gray ripples. Chao Mang used all his spiritual energy to charge out of the ripples and quickly ran out the door. Tang Yuan and Lu Kan also saw Chao Mang's actions, but they were trapped in the gray ripples and could not think of a way to escape. So how could they care about Chao Mang? They could only watch as Chao Mang ran away. Chao Mang had one foot out the door and his heart was filled with joy. However, he suddenly heard the sound of thunder and several bolts of blue lightning fell down on him. How could Chao Mang have imagined that there was still a violent thunderstorm waiting for him outside the door? The protective spiritual energy on his body was instantly torn apart under the rolling thunder, and several thunderbolts struck down without any resistance. Chao Mang's body was instantly charred from the outside and tender from the inside. The lightning entered his body, madly destroying his flesh and meridians. He opened his mouth and coughed out a mouthful of blood mixed with bits of his internal organs. He didn't have time to panic. Only now did he see that a lightning formation with a radius of several meters had been set up in the main hall. Specks of lightning flickered, and bolts of lightning rumbled. It was extremely gorgeous, and it lit up the entire main hall. He also saw a figure standing in the center of the lightning array. However, the figure's face could not be seen clearly under the cover of the lightning. This person was naturally Lang Shiqi. What he was using now was a rank 3 spiritual skill, Lightning Annihilation Formation. Although this lightning destruction array was only a rank 3 spiritual skill, its power was not much weaker than a rank 4 spiritual skill. Its biggest flaw was that it required a certain amount of time to set up the lightning destruction array, and it could not be moved. In other words, it was very limited. Fortunately, Chao Mang and the other two had been focused on searching for treasures in the side hall, so Lung Shiqi had had time to set up the lightning destruction array. Now that the array was set up, just a few thunderbolts were enough to seriously injure Chao Mang. Chao Mang finally understood that there had been a person following behind them all this time. His eyes flickered. He knew that he was already injured, and now that the evil energy in his body was wreaking havoc and the lightning was wreaking havoc, he was definitely not a match for the other. Brother, if you want nothing more than the treasures in this main hall, I can offer them all to you. I can even give you my mustard seed bag in exchange for my life. In his view, Tang Yuan and Lu Can, who were still in the side hall, could not be trapped forever. They would come out sooner or later. He only needed to delay them, and when the three of them joined forces, it would be time for them to counterattack. However, what answered him was a giant ice sword exuding an extremely cold aura. Chao Mang's expression finally changed. The other party was not even willing to say a word. Even now, he could still feel a trace of the aura of death. No, I cannot die. When I get out, I will soar. Chao Mang roared inside. Perhaps the threat of death had stimulated his latent power. The broken sword suddenly exploded with a sword energy not to be outdone by the giant ice sword. The sword energy and the giant ice sword collided fiercely. In an instant, the sword energy shattered, and the ice shattered. This exchange was actually evenly matched. However, at this time, the lightning destruction array once again formed multiple bolts of lightning and struck down. Chao Mang wanted to dodge, but his spirit power had long been depleted from the fierce battle. His body had been ravaged by the evil energy and lightning. He did not have the strength to dodge. The lightning once again swallowed Chao Mang. However, Lung Shiqi was still not reassured. His 5 fingers shot out 5 fire spears. Chao Mang was completely turned to charcoal under the lightning and fire. Then a green light that only Lung Shiqi could see entered his body. Lung Shiqi was not happy at all. His eyes focused and he secretly said, "They should come out now." The evil heavenly morning curse was a 4th-level spiritual skill and it could attack both the physical body and the mind. It was indeed a very strong spiritual skill. However, it had a flaw that could not be considered a flaw. That was that the evil heavenly morning curse did not have a strong killing power. It could erode your body and torture your mind, but it was very hard for it to kill people. So Leng Shiqi did not think that a single evil heavenly morning curse could take care of Tang Yuan and Lu Can. In fact, it was indeed like this. Tang Yuan and Lu Can in the side hall gradually found a way to deal with the evil heavenly morning curse. Moreover, Leng Shiqi could not control the evil heavenly morning curse while fighting Chao Mang, so the two of them escaped before Chao Mang died. Even if they escaped, they still had to suppress the evil energy in their bodies, so they were not in a rush to come out. At the same time, they could hear the intense fighting outside. No matter what, Chao Mang was still a spirit cultivator in the early stage of the spirit pulse realm. If he died here, it would not be good for them to rashly go out. Lu Can had an anxious expression as he asked, "Brother Tang, what should we do?" Tang Yuan thought for a bit and said, "The person outside should be a spirit cultivator. He has already laid down a spiritual array outside. We cannot charge out. Let's wait and see. If he dares to come in, we will use all our strength to kill him. If he doesn't come in, it's also good. We will just wait here to recover our spiritual energy. Someone will come here sooner or later." Brother Tang is right. A spirit cultivator in the 4th stage of the sky realm is not easy to deal with. Chapter 245. What Tang Yuan said was also what Lung Shiqi was having a headache about. The lightning destruction array he set up could not be moved, and he had to expend spirit energy at all times. If the two of them hid and did not come out, he could not maintain the lightning destruction array forever. But without the support of the lightning destruction array, he did not have the confidence to kill the two of them. If one of them escaped, they would leak information about him. When he thought about this, Leng Shiqi's eyes turned and he said softly, "I was too greedy. Since I already killed Chao Mang, he alone has the resources of 3 spirit pulse realm cultivators. Just this alone is already a huge profit. Moreover, the two inside have never seen my face. I'll just turn and leave. Following that, Lang Shiqi first took 3 mustard seed bags from Chao Mang's body before dispelling the lightning destruction array and running out of the hall. Tang Yuan and Lu Kan were both stunned. They also heard Lang Shiqi's words and remembered that all the valuable items were on Chao Mang's body. After the other party killed Chao Mang, not only did he obtain the accumulated resources of the 3 Spirit Pulse Realm cultivators, he also obtained a Divine Illusion Spirit Stone, a powerful broken sword, and the treasure that Chao Mang had just discovered in the side hall. Now that the other party had run away with so many resources, they were still hiding here like idiots. Tang Yuan and Lu Kan's faces were as black as an iron pot. Tang Yuan said hatefully, "Damn it, we were tricked by that person." After he finished speaking, he walked out of the side hall. Lu Kan thought of something and opened his mouth to say, "Is the other party purposely luring them out?" But seeing that Tang Yuan had already walked out, he swallowed his words back down. The two of them returned to the main hall and immediately saw Chao Mang's charred corpse. Tang Yuan sneered, "Humph, if you had handed over the treasure earlier, the 3 of us could have killed Luo Yi together. Why would we be afraid of this person? You wouldn't have ended up like this. Serves you right." Lu Kan first looked around and found nothing out of the ordinary before asking, "Brother Tang, where are we going next?" Tang Yuan said with a gloomy face, "Sigh, what bad luck. After fighting for half a day, we didn't get anything. Let's go and meet up with our fellow disciples first. The more people there are, the more confidence we have." The two of them walked out of the hall side by side. However, what neither of them expected was that there was a devilish figure standing upside down outside the hall. This figure was wearing a set of ferocious black armor. There were traces of blood flowing on the armor, but he had a pair of white eyes. His eyes were filled with boundless killing intent as he stared at Tang Yuan and Lu Kan. Tang Yuan and Lu Kan were also experienced spirit cultivator. Their bodies stopped at the same time and became vigilant. It was obvious that they had also sensed the killing intent. But what they didn't notice was that the killing intent was coming from above. Lang Shiqi didn't actually leave after he removed the lightning destruction array. Instead, he hid here and waited for the two of them. Rolling his eyes, the two of them came out not long after. He activated his magical beast battle pattern armor and was ready to attack. At this moment, Lang Shiqi finally waited for the best opportunity. He clenched his right hand into a fist and his left hand into a palm. A fist and a palm fell at the same time. When the fist came out, it actually had the power of a ferocious tiger roaring through the forest. When the palm came out, the devil flames burned and melted everything. Tang Yuan and Lu Kan suddenly raised their heads and saw the fist and palm falling. They were shocked and at the same time, they also retaliated with a fist and a palm. Tang Yuan's fist was wrapped in a strong yellow brilliance and was as heavy as Mount Tai. Lu Kan's palm was like the cold winter wind, causing people to feel as if they were being cut by a knife. The two fists and two palms collided head-on. With the 3 of them as the center, a violent spirit energy fluctuation was set off within a radius of 100 feet. Even the jade pillars in front of the hall were broken and collapsed. The ferocious tiger treading wave fist's gray tiger phantom completely suppressed Tang Yuan. It seemed like the tiger was the king of the mountain. As for the 6 Yang poison fire palm and Lu Kan's palm energy, the devil flames and cold wind intertwined and burst out with ear-piercing sounds. However, the devil flames were still 10 feet higher. These 2 spirit pulse stage cultivators were actually being suppressed by Lang Shiqi alone. The ground beneath their feet cracked inch by inch and their faces became abnormally pale. Even their feet were sinking into the ground. At the same time, an unbelievable thought appeared in their minds. Who is this person? He was clearly also at the early stage of the Spirit Pulse stage and was only at the first level of the Spirit Pulse stage. Why was his strength stronger than the two of them combined? They definitely did not know that Lang Shiqi's spirit energy was a mutated spirit energy that had fused devil and demonic spirit energy into one. Just based on his spirit energy foundation, it was comparable to the 3rd level of the Spirit Pulse stage. Tang Yuan endured the ferocious tiger-treading wave fist and said with difficulty, "Sir, we have no enmity with each other. Why do we have to fight? Moreover, the two of us did not find anything. However, there was a spirit caster that plundered a large amount of treasures and even divine fantasy spirit stones." When Lang Shiqi heard this, he sneered in his heart. Tang Yuan did not know that the spirit caster he was talking about was actually Lung Shiqi. Boom boom. With a series of explosions, Tang Yuan and Lu Can both used their spirit energy to fight the enemy. The evil energy in their bodies began to wreak havoc again. They could no longer hold on and were forced back by Lung Shiqi, creating a long trench on the ground. Blood flowed out from the corners of their mouths and their clothes were tattered. Especially Lu Can, who was trembling from the burning of the poisonous flames. On the other hand, Leng Shiqi's armor only had a few cracks. The difference in strength was obvious. Leng Shiqi did not show any mercy. He held the azure rain saber in his hand but did not unsheath it. He slowly walked over with the saber. He wanted to use this opportunity to try to merge the saber drawing technique with the full moon swift slash. Tang Yuan and Lu Can's faces were ashen. They both had their own trump cards, but they used them when they teamed up to kill Luo Yi. Now that they were in danger, they were at their wits' end. Tang Yuan's heart moved. He punched out again, but this time the target was not Lung Shiqi, but Lu Can who was beside him. This punch did not have much power, but it sent Lu Can's body flying in the direction of Lung Shiqi, while Tang Yuan ran down the mountain with all his strength. Lu Can never dreamed that he would encounter the same situation as Luo Yi and be betrayed by his own sect. When he saw this scene, Leng Shiqi was delighted in his heart instead. Originally, if the two of them were to join forces and fight to the death, then he would have to exert all his strength to be able to kill both of them. Now, a head was directly delivered to him. Wasn't that wonderful? Lu Can, who was sent flying in the air, had no room to fight back. Leng Shiqi's figure suddenly accelerated and arrived in front of Lu Can in an instant. Then, an extremely thin but dazzling saber light flashed and disappeared. As for Lu Can's head, it was chopped off cleanly. Leng Shiqi murmured, almost. Then, his gaze locked onto Tang Yuan's back, and he took out a pale golden longbow. Chapter 246. The bow Leng Shiqi took out was a level 3 spiritual weapon, the Golden Heart Bow. This was the prize he won from the lottery in the demonic Miasma mountain range. Unfortunately, it did not come with a bow and arrow. However, Leng Shiqi did not need a bow and arrow. He held the bow in his left hand and opened the fingers of his right hand. In an instant, 5 arrows condensed from demonic energy appeared in his hand. This was a spiritual technique that he had not used in a long time, the demonic weapon mystic technique. He pulled the bow to a full moon and 5 demonic arrows shot out. Under Leng Shiqi's control, the 5 demonic arrows did not all shoot towards Tang Yuan. 2 of them flew past Tang Yuan. Tang Yuan, who was flying at high speed, naturally heard the sound of the arrows breaking through the air behind him. He turned around and saw the 5 demonic arrows flying towards him. He immediately took out an elixir from his mustard seed bag. He struggled for a moment before swallowing the elixir in the end. Immediately, demonic energy surged out of Tang Yuan's body and his aura rose a little. Tang Yuan put his palms together and condensed a demonic seal that was half the height of a person. He pushed his palms forward and the demonic seal met Leng Shiqi's demonic arrows. The demonic seal was powerful and blocked 3 demonic arrows in a row. However, the other 2 arrows flew past the demonic seal and landed at Tang Yuan's feet. Immediately, there were 2 explosions. Tang Yuan was flipped over by the force of the explosions and the demonic seal dissipated. Leng Shiqi did not expect a few demonic arrows to kill Tang Yuan. He only needed to stop Tang Yuan. Just as the demonic arrows landed, Leng Shiqi's body floated over. He was holding a jade-colored long sword in his hand, the unpolished jade sword. He was determined to take Tang Yuan's life. When Leng Shiqi approached, his figure suddenly changed into 24 phantoms. All the phantoms stabbed at Tang Yuan from all directions with jade-colored sword rays and invisible sword energy. The sword chi and sword chi crisscrossed, leaving no room to dodge. Tang Yuan was horrified. Before the sword beams arrived, the sword energies had already arrived. Dozens of invisible meridian-invading sword energies pierced through his protective spiritual energy and sealed off many of his meridians, leaving him with no chance to turn the tables. At this moment, Tang Yuan saw the sword in Leng Shiqi's hand. His eyes widened as he exclaimed, "Plain jade sword? You're Leng Shiqi." Leng Shiqi was shocked when he heard Tang Yuan say his real name. Although he was surprised, he still wanted to keep Tang Yuan alive to get to the bottom of this. However, it was already too late. He could no longer withdraw his sword. Puff, puff, puff. Suddenly, more than 20 blood veins burst out from Tang Yuan's body. The vitality in his eyes dissipated in an instant. He couldn't be more dead. Leng Shiqi's face was gloomy as he removed the mustard seed bag from Tang Yuan's body. Although he had killed these two people and obtained what he wanted, he had also completely prevented his information from being leaked. However, he was not happy at all. It was because of Tang Yuan's words before he died. Leng Shiqi frowned and thought hard. Tang Yuan could call out my name with just the plain jade sword. That's impossible. He had indeed killed Tang Hepu and snatched the plain jade sword in front of everyone, and he had also used the dazzling blossom sword move. If Tang Yuan had recognized him as the black-clothed assassin who had killed Tang Hepu, it would have been fine. However, how could Pian Pian recognize him as Leng Shiqi? On the day of the destruction of the Golden Wing Academy, the blood-clothed pavilion had dispatched nearly 100 black-clothed assassins. How could others know that he was the one who had killed Tang Hepu? More importantly, Leng Shiqi's current body shape was completely different from that time. Moreover, his entire body was now covered with magical beast battle pattern armor, and his face could not be seen. Therefore, Tang Yuan did not recognize him by his body shape. Then how did he equate the plain jade sword and Leng Shiqi? Where did I go wrong? Leng Shiqi could not figure it out. He secretly decided that when he went out, he would find out more about this. Since Tang Yuan knew that he had killed Tang Hepu, there must be many people who knew about it. Leng Shiqi felt a little depressed. He took a deep breath and put away the plain jade sword. This sword could not be used easily anymore. Finally, he returned to the hall, picked up Liu Can's mustard seed bag, and hurried down the mountain. What was worth being happy about was that he now had 5 mustard seed bags on him. Just these 5 mustard seed bags alone were worth a lot of spiritual stones. Crash! Leng Shiqi opened up a space underground, poured out all the things in the 5 mustard seed bags, and then arranged them according to their categories. First, he piled some gold, silver, and sundries aside. These were the things with the lowest value. Then, there were all kinds of materials for refining pills. Although these things had some value, they were useless to Leng Shiqi. He simply sold them all to the system for more than 400 system coins. Then, there were pills and spiritual stones. These 5 people were all in the spirit pulse realm and were also from a spirit cultivation sect. They had a lot of spiritual stones. In total, there were more than 3,000 pieces. It could be said that Leng Shiqi had made a fortune. He finally understood why some people like to kill others for their treasures. Money came too quickly. Among the pills, other than some common ones, what surprised Leng Shiqi the most was that he found 2 meridian opening pills in Luo Yi's mustard seed bag. At the spirit pulse realm, the most important thing was no longer spiritual power. Because no matter how much spiritual power you have, if you cannot open your spirit pulse, you will never be able to break through. And the meridian opening pill was a pill that could help open the spirit pulse. To a spirit pulse realm cultivator, this was no doubt a treasure. This was definitely a priceless pill. Ordinary spirit pulse realm cultivators would have a hard time getting it. Only spirit pulse realm cultivators like Luo Yi would be able to get it. For Leng Shiqi, who was at the first level of the spirit pulse realm, these 2 pills could help him open a spirit pulse. In other words, as long as he accumulated enough spiritual power, he could easily break through to the 2nd level of the spirit pulse realm. He carefully stored the 2 meridian opening pills in the system space, and then looked at the few spirit tools on the ground. The most precious one was the dark green broken sword. Leng Shiqi looked at it carefully. This short sword was actually a level 5 spirit tool. Although the sword was broken, it was still stronger than a level 4 spirit tool. Other than that, there were a few level 2 and level 3 spirit tools. Leng Shiqi kept a dagger among them and threw the rest to the system. Finally, he picked up the silver paper and looked at it carefully. His eyes were filled with surprise. There was actually a pill formula written on this piece of silver paper. Level 6 pill formula. Meridian opening pill. Meridian opening pill. The name sounded very common, but its value was far above the meridian opening pill. This was a pill that could open the spirit pulse realm, a pill that spirit pulse realm cultivators yearned for even in their dreams. And with the pill formula, it meant that as long as he could find a capable alchemist, he could refine large amounts of meridian opening pills. This meant that not only could his cultivation increase by leaps and bounds, it would also bring him endless wealth. Lang Shiqi took a deep breath and carefully touched the silver paper. After a while, he reluctantly stored it in the system space. The only thing left was the Divine Illusion Spirit Stone. As for cultivation techniques and spiritual skills, there was not a single one. He was already used to it. No one would carry that kind of thing with them. Of course, it was safest to keep it in his mind. Other than that, he also absorbed a portion of Chao Mang, Tang Yuan and Lu Can's spiritual power. This allowed his body's strength and spiritual power to increase. It could be considered an additional harvest. Chapter 247. The next day. To be precise, Lang Shiqi didn't know what time it was because there was no day or night in the illusory spirit secret realm. He could only judge from his hunger that it was already the next day. He habitually opened the system store, glanced at the goods on it, and shook his head and closed it. He had made a lot of money yesterday, and now he had more than 700 system coins in his pocket, but he didn't want to draw any more. This was back to the old problem he had when he was still on Blood Mist Island. For the current Lang Shiqi, the ordinary intermediate prizes were no longer enough to satisfy him. It was possible to draw third-rank resources in the intermediate lottery, and it was also possible to draw fourth-rank resources. At this stage, there was no doubt that fourth-rank resources could improve Lang Shiqi, but the probability of drawing fourth-rank resources in the intermediate lottery was too low. In this way, it was better to pay more attention to the system store. Maybe he could find something he wanted. It was a pity that the 4 items that were refreshed today were all materials and sundries. After he left the previous mountain, he explored a few places and met many spirit cultivators. Most of those spirit cultivators found their own sect members and gathered together, so he could only stay away. As he walked, he came to a cliff where hundreds of spirit cultivators were gathered. However, the strange thing was that these people were not fighting for anything, but some of them were sitting cross-legged. The other people were whispering to each other. Lang Shiqi, who had planned to go around, couldn't help but walk over curiously. When he got closer, he saw a dreamy circle of light at the bottom of the cliff. In front of the circle of light, there was a stone tablet that was 2 feet tall, and lines of small words were engraved on the stone tablet. In front of the stone tablet, there were dozens of people sitting cross-legged. Lang Shiqi walked over and stood in the crowd, listening to their conversation. I wonder if any of these people can comprehend it? I don't think there's much hope. Since the opening of the illusory spirit secret realm, it said that only one person obtained the inheritance of the cultivation method a few hundred years ago. Sigh, the person who set up this situation is too strict. It's better to just let people fight for it. If it's based on strength, you and I still have some hope. But if it's based on potential and comprehension ability, we are far inferior to those young people. That's right. Let's not talk about anything else. Just the Mountain Sea sects by Yi and the 1,000 Illusionary Sword sects OZU are considered geniuses. I wonder if they will succeed. Hearing this, Lang Shiqi immediately remembered that Husanli had also mentioned to him that there was a place he had to go after entering the secret realm. It was this cliff. It was said that the halo at the bottom of the cliff contained the inheritance of the Divine Illusion Palace's cultivation method, but in order to obtain the inheritance, one had to pass a test. However, this test did not test one's strength, but one's talent and perception. The content of the test was engraved on the stone tablet. There was a nameless chant engraved on it, but the strange thing was that this chant could not be memorized. In other words, after you memorize it in your mind, you will lose this memory in an instant. If he couldn't remember it, how was he supposed to cultivate it? He didn't know. Since ancient times, there had only been one person who had comprehended this incantation and entered the circle of light to obtain the inheritance. Even so, every time the illusory spirit secret realm opened, everyone who entered would come here to give it a try. What if they comprehended it? Lang Shiqi looked at the stone tablet with a burning gaze. He really wanted to go over and give it a try. He had unlimited skill points, so maybe he could directly learn the chant. However, he was not in a hurry to go forward. Instead, he planned to wait and see. He also realized that more than 70% of the cultivators here were at the early stage of the Spirit Pulse realm. Furthermore, they were all quite young. These people still had some hope in their hearts. As for those in the late stage of the Spirit Pulse realm, They might as well go elsewhere to try their luck and not waste their time here. Gradually, those who were sitting cross-legged left one by one with sullen faces. It was obvious that they had all failed. Many of the people who had come to watch the show had also left. Only those who were still comprehending the chant were left. Among them, the largest number were undoubtedly from the Mountain Sea sect and the Thousand Illusion Sword sect. These people all looked at the two people with anticipation. These two people were naturally the most talented in entering the illusory spirit secret realm this time. Therefore, they were also the most hopeful. Leng Shiqi's gaze was also fixed on by Yi and Ozu. However, he was also a little surprised that he didn't see anyone from the Tang family here. As a first-rate force in Donglin County, how could the Tang family give up such an opportunity? But without waiting for him to think too much, Ozu, who was sitting cross-legged, suddenly shone with a gorgeous seven-colored light. Then, he was wrapped up by the seven-colored light and left the ground, flying directly into the circle of light at the bottom of the cliff. Seeing this scene, everyone was shocked. A disciple of the Thousand Illusion Sword sect immediately shouted in surprise. Junior Brother O succeeded. He comprehended the nameless chant. An older spirit cultivator beside him laughed and said, "Haha, he is the second person in thousands of years to obtain the inheritance. Our sect is lucky." The people of the Thousand Illusion Sword sect were all happy. As for the local forces of Donglin County, their expressions were not so good. If a genius in Donglin County obtained the inheritance, they might be envious and jealous, but in the end, they would not let the fertile water flow into their own fields. But now, Ozu of Pinghui County had obtained the inheritance. This was equivalent to slapping their faces. Especially the Mountain Sea sect, which was the leader of Donglin County. This meant that Ozu was more talented than Bai Yi. At this moment, their expressions were the most unsightly. At this moment, Bai Yi also tidied up his clothes and walked back. The Mountain Sea sect immediately asked, "Junior Brother Bai, how was it?" Bai Yi smiled bitterly and shook his head. "Actually, I already knew that I couldn't comprehend the nameless chant. I just wanted to see if Ozu could comprehend it. It's fine. It's just a cultivation method inheritance. Our sect's supreme cultivation method might not be worse than this. Junior Brother Bai, don't think too much." Bai Yi replied shyly, "It's fine. Thank you for your explanation, Senior Brother. Let's go first." Following that, the people of the Mountain Sea sect left like flowing water. At this time, there were not many people still sitting cross-legged in front of the stone tablet. They saw that Ozu had entered and Bai Yi had given up. How could they still have the mood to comprehend the nameless formula? Thus, they all prepared to get up and leave. At this moment, a figure leisurely walked to the stone tablet and sat down cross-legged. Many people looked at that person with surprise and doubt. Who is this person? Which sect is he from? I don't know. Judging from his clothes, he seems to be a rogue cultivator. TSK. A rank 1 rogue cultivator dares to covet the cultivation method inheritance of the Divine Illusion Palace? He overestimates himself. I seem to have some impression of this person. He seems to be called Zhuoqiu. Zhuoqiu? I've never heard of him. His cultivation is only at the first level of the Spirit Pulse realm. It's impossible for him to compete for the Illusory Palace token. Either his strength is extraordinary, or he used other methods to obtain the Illusory Palace token. I think it's most likely the latter. So what if he's strong? The nameless chant tests talent. Look at him, he's at least 40 years old and only just entered the Spirit Pulse realm. It can be seen that his talent isn't that good. Who cares about him? Let's go. When the others saw Leng Shiqi walk to the stone tablet, they all revealed looks of disdain. Rogue cultivators had always been very unbearable in the eyes of these spirit cultivator sections. Clearly, they did not think highly of Leng Shiqi. However, just as they were discussing animatedly, Leng Shiqi's body suddenly burst forth with a seven-colored light. Following that, he floated up like Ozu and floated into the circle of light. Those who were saying that Leng Shiqi was overestimating himself were all stunned. Even if Ozu was a peerless genius, he still took a long time to comprehend it. How did Zhuoqiu comprehend it as soon as he sat down? What kind of terrifying comprehension ability did he have? What shocked everyone even more was that after Leng Shiqi entered the circle of light, the stone tablet actually collapsed with a loud bang. Chapter 248. In fact, when Leng Shiqi had just arrived in front of the stone tablet, a line of words that only he could see appeared in front of his eyes. Discover the cultivation method, Divine Fantasy Spirit Technique. Do you want to learn it? However, Leng Shiqi did not cultivate it immediately. Since there was a prompt from the system, it meant that he could cultivate it at any time. What he was a little concerned about was that there were a lot of people around him. There were people from the Mountain Sea sect, the Thousand Illusionary Sword sect, and dozens of other sections. Some of these people might be able to recognize his current identity. Therefore, he pretended to sit down cross-legged. He wanted to wait for most of the people to leave before cultivating the chant. However, he did not expect that when those people saw him sit down cross-legged, they began to point at him. It seemed that they would not leave in a short period of time. Leng Shiqi had no choice but to cultivate the chant, which was what happened just now. Of course, he did not know that the stone tablet would collapse after he entered the circle of light. After Leng Shiqi entered the circle of light, he arrived at a narrow space in a flash. This space was about a few hundred feet in size. There were 3 small rooms in front of him. The first room from left to right had been destroyed. The door of the second room was tightly shut, and only the door of the third room was open. Leng Shiqi's eyes flashed as he thought to himself, the first room should have been chosen by the person who obtained the inheritance hundreds of years ago. As for the second room, it must be Ozu. In other words, this inheritance is actually different. Now I have no choice but to go to the third room. However, Leng Shiqi was not in a hurry to go in. Instead, he first activated his supercilious eye to observe. The result was as he expected. Supercilious eye could not see through anything here. Then, he stepped into the third room. The moment he entered the room, the door behind him automatically closed. Leng Shiqi looked around. This room was not big. There were a few dark red bookshelves around it. On them were ancient books of varying thickness. It seemed to be a study. He walked to a bookshelf, picked up a book, and flipped through it a few times. He was surprised to find that these books were all real. Didn't they say that there was a cultivation method inheritance here? Why were there so many books? Could it be that the cultivation technique was in these books? Leng Shiqi quickly flipped through the ancient books one by one. These books basically recorded strange stories, and they were all from 10,000 years ago. There was almost no value to them. Then, Leng Shiqi walked to the desk in the study. There were a few books on the desk, or rather, secret manuals. Leng Shiqi's eyes lit up. He picked up one of the books and a system prompt appeared in front of him. Discovered rank 3 spiritual skill soul scaring spell. Learn it? Discovered the rank 3 spiritual skill, mind seizing technique. Learn it? Discovered rank 4 spiritual skill falling blossoms. Learn it? Yes. Leng Shiqi was secretly delighted that he had cultivated 3 spiritual skills in succession, including a rank 4 spiritual skill. Furthermore, these 3 spiritual skills were all illusions. This was also a field that Leng Shiqi had never touched before. Just as he cultivated these 3 spiritual skills, a figure suddenly appeared on the chair behind the desk. This figure was a young man around 20 years old. He was wearing a colorful robe, but there was an ancient feeling between his eyebrows. Leng Shiqi's demonic aura immediately surged and a bloody glow appeared. He was activating the demonic beast blood pattern armor. The figure spoke, but his voice sounded abnormally old. He said softly, "Young man, don't panic." As soon as he spoke, the demonic aura and bloody glow on Leng Shiqi's body instantly disappeared without a trace. Leng Shiqi frowned as he looked at the figure. Although his face was still tense, his heart was already filled with horror. Since the other party called him young man, it meant that he saw through his disguise at a glance. The other party's words also meant that the other party knew Leng Shiqi's reaction. In other words, that figure wasn't an illusion left behind by something like a shadow recording stone. It was a real person with consciousness and a real existence. The figure then said, "Young man, your heart is not bad. I am the palace master of the 5-god flowing light palace under the divine illusion palace, Zhu Shenlu. Since you can cultivate the entry chant of the divine illusion spirit art and comprehend a few illusions, it means that you are very suited to cultivate our sex cultivation method." Leng Shiqi heard this and understood. So there was a test in this room. The test was the 3 illusions. Presumably, if one learned the 3 illusions in a certain amount of time, this Zhu Shenlu would appear. Leng Shiqi had unknowingly passed the test. Thinking this, he respectfully said, Junior Leng Shiqi greets Palace Master Zhu. All right, I don't have much time. First, answer a question of mine. Senior, please ask. Junior will answer everything I know. Zhu Shenlu asked, does the Divine Illusion Palace still exist? Leng Shiqi was stunned for a moment. Then he replied, Palace Master Zhu, the Divine Illusion Palace was destroyed 10,000 years ago. Zhu Shenlu's complexion constantly changed. Finally he sighed and said, this result is within my expectations. The Grand Palace Master really failed. Leng Shiqi didn't understand his words, but he silently noted them down. Zhu Shenlu sternly said, Leng Shiqi, the current me is a wisp of will left behind by my true self before he died. My purpose is to pass down the legacy of the Divine Illusion Palace. The Divine Illusion Palace's highest cultivation method, the Divine Illusion Spirit Art, is divided into 3 parts, and each part can be called a top cultivation method. The Divine Illusion Palace is also divided into 3 great illusion palaces, each of which cultivates a part. My lineage cultivates the 5 God Flowing Light Art. I can pass down this cultivation method to you, but you must swear a blood oath that you will bring the Divine Illusion Palace back to the world in the future. Are you willing? Leng Shiqi didn't hesitate at all. He loudly said, Junior will do everything in my power to complete Palace Master Zhu's task. Very good. Zhu Shenlu lifted his hand and a blood-red light sank into Leng Shiqi's body. But he didn't feel anything strange. Zhu Shenlu said, the blood oath has already been imprinted on your soul. It will only be effective after you reach the boundary of unity with the world. If you fail to complete my task before you die, your soul will scatter and you will not enter the cycle of samsara. Leng Shiqi was startled as he heard this, but he honestly nodded. Zhu Shenlu pointed his finger again, and a 5-colored ray of light flashed. In Leng Shiqi's mental illusion world, a huge illusion word suddenly appeared. Zhu Shenlu said, I have sealed the 5 God Flowing Light Art in your mental space. Every time you break through a realm, a part of the seal will be undone and you will obtain the next level of the cultivation method. Next, I will guide you in the first level, but you will have to rely on yourself for the rest. Chapter 249. Several hours later, Leng Shiqi finally cultivated the first level of the 5 God Flowing Light Art to the rudimentary level. This time, he did not use the system but relied on his own understanding and Zhu Shenlu's guidance. Zhu Shenlu praised Leng Shiqi endlessly, saying that his talent was exceptional. Actually, the main reason was that his mental force was strong enough and for some reason, he seemed to have a high affinity for illusion-type techniques. He guessed that it might be related to the mental illusion world. He always thought that the mental illusion world was an upgraded version of the mental space, but now it seemed that it was not that simple. At this time, Zhu Shenlu's figure was a lot fainter than before. He said, since everything is over, I should return to the cycle of reincarnation. Leng Shiqi bowed deeply and said, Junior will remember Senior's great kindness. If I have the ability in the future, I will definitely rebuild the Divine Illusion Palace. Zhu Shenlu's figure became fainter and fainter until all that was left was a blurry multicolored light. However, a sentence was still transmitted out. One day we may meet again. However, we may not know each other anymore. With that, Zhu Shenlu completely disappeared. Leng Shiqi's heart was filled with mixed feelings. This time, he used unlimited skill points to easily complete the 2 tests of obtaining the inheritance. It could be said that the process was abnormally smooth. It was reasonable to say that he should be overjoyed. However, obtaining the inheritance too easily made him feel that it was unreal. This was similar to the feeling Gu San and Yu Shu had when they were still on Blood Mist Island and he helped them occupy an area. Additionally, Zhu Shenlu's request was like a mountain pressing down on his heart. Rebuild the Divine Illusion Palace? Easier said than done. However, he had the blood oath that Zhu Shenlu had engraved in his body. Unless he wanted his soul to scatter, he had to complete this. Fortunately, Zhu Shenlu was quite understanding. Only when he reached unity of heaven and man realm would the blood oath take effect. Lang Shiqi shook his head and said, "Forget it, I'm too far away from unity of heaven and man realm. We'll talk about it when the time comes." Then, Lang Shiqi pushed open the door and walked out. Coincidentally, Ozu had also just come out. Ozu was a very good-looking youth. It was not an exaggeration to say that he was romantic and elegant. Especially a man with a pair of phoenix eyes, who knew how many girls would be charmed by him. The two of them looked at each other and their eyes flickered with various emotions. They were both guessing what the other party had obtained in the room. However, they tacitly agreed not to ask. Lang Shiqi secretly guessed, Ozu is the leader of this generation of the Thousand Illusion Sword Sect, and the Thousand Illusion Sword Sect is a sect that dabbles in illusions. It's reasonable for him to be able to obtain the inheritance. Ozu's eyes flashed with surprise. Firstly, he didn't expect someone to come in behind him. Secondly, he didn't expect this person to be a rogue cultivator? A rogue cultivator who wasn't young. Just as they were having their own thoughts, all of a sudden, the small space began to shake violently. Lang Shiqi and Ozu reacted very quickly. Without saying a word, they immediately rushed towards the circle of light. Fortunately, they were very close and entered the circle of light in a few breaths. Outside the circle of light, there were still dozens of people guarding it. Among them, more than a dozen were dressed in white robes and carrying long swords on their backs. They were all from the Thousand Illusions Sword Sect. As for the others, they were basically people from second-rate and third-rate sections. Among them, there were 3 people from the Heavenly Cloud Tower. They were all waiting for Lang Shiqi and Ozu to come out, but their respective goals were different. At this moment, the circle of light suddenly twisted, and 2 figures jumped out from it. It was Lang Shiqi and Ozu. Seeing Ozu come out, the dozen or so people from the Thousand Illusion Sword Sect immediately went up to him. They were all overjoyed, but they didn't ask anything. They vaguely surrounded Ozu in the middle, and a few of them looked at Lang Shiqi meaningfully. Lang Shiqi immediately felt that something was wrong. Ozu's mouth moved, but his voice was too soft. Lang Shiqi didn't hear what he said. But then the people from the Thousand Illusions Sword Sect left in a hurry. The Thousand Illusions Sword Sect had already made a lot of money on this trip. Now their main goal was to bring Ozu back to the sect safely. The people from the Thousand Illusions Sword Sect left, but there were still 40 to 50 people left. They slowly approached Lang Shiqi in groups of 3 to 5. They all knew that Ozu and Lang Shiqi had both obtained the inheritance inside. Moreover, the stone tablet had already collapsed, so no one would be able to obtain the inheritance in the future. In other words, Ozu and Lang Shiqi were living inheritances. Ozu was a disciple of the top force, the Thousand Illusions Sword Sect. They didn't dare to touch him, nor did they have the ability to do so. But Lang Shiqi was different. His current identity was just a rogue cultivator with no background, and his cultivation was only at the first level of the spirit vein realm. Who wouldn't be jealous of a mobile inheritance with a low cultivation level and no background? Dozens of greedy, covetous, and cold gazes immediately fell on Lang Shiqi's body. Lang Shiqi still had a straight face and said in a deep voice, "Everyone, what is the meaning of this?" A man with white hair but a strong body said, "Zhuoqiu, as the saying goes, a wise man submits to circumstances. Hand over the inheritance and we can spare your life." Lang Shiqi looked at this person's clothes and guessed that he was from the third-rate force, the Golden Blade Hall. His aura was not weaker than Luo Yi's. It seemed that he was at least a spirit cultivator in the middle stage of the spirit vein realm. However, Lang Shiqi was not afraid at all. He said, "I have the inheritance of the cultivation method." As soon as these words were said, everyone's breathing became heavier. Lang Shiqi continued, "But everyone belongs to different sections. Who should I give it to?" Everyone's expression immediately changed. The person from the Golden Blade Hall who spoke just now shouted, Zhuoqiu, don't try to sow discord. As long as you hand over the inheritance of the cultivation method, you can leave. As for who the cultivation method belongs to, that is not something you need to worry about." That's right. Elder Wuxia is right. If you want to live, hand over the inheritance. Zhuoqiu, you are just a rogue cultivator. If you die, you will die for nothing. I advise you not to resist. Everyone threatened Lang Shiqi one after another, but they were not in a hurry to make a move. Killing Lang Shiqi was easy, but if they forced him to hand over the cultivation method, they had to capture him alive. This was more troublesome. Furthermore, everyone around them could be said to be competitors. If they acted rashly, they might be surrounded by others. If they forced Lang Shiqi to commit suicide, wouldn't they be drawing water with a bamboo basket? Lang Shiqi could not help but sneer in his heart when he saw all these people speaking ill of him and coveting his cultivation technique. This was the way a dignified spirit cultivator sect acted. Just as he was about to use his trump card to escape, a voice suddenly sounded in his ears. Wuxia, I can help you escape. How about you give me the cultivation method after this? Chapter 250. Lang Shiqi didn't know what method this voice used, but it directly appeared in his ears. Lang Shiqi's first reaction when he heard this sentence was that it was a little familiar. He quickly tried to recall, but he couldn't remember anything at the moment. The voice appeared again. Wuxia, you don't have much time left. If they start fighting, even I won't be able to save you. After hearing this voice again, Lang Shiqi finally remembered. He had heard this voice before in Boy Wanhu's tomb. This person was a devil cultivator, Su Lu. Lang Shiqi looked around and saw a person in a large black robe. It was the rogue cultivator who held the illusory palace token before entering the illusory spirit secret realm. At that time, Lang Shiqi felt that there was a familiar aura on his body. Back then they had fought. Lang Shiqi remembered very clearly that in Boy Wanhu's tomb, everyone was played by Su Lu and the other 5 devil cultivators. In the end, he borrowed the power of the devil spirit to escape from their hands. And now, Lang Shiqi was also in the spirit pulse realm. Looking at Su Lu's aura, it seemed that he was in the early stage of the spirit pulse realm. It would have been fine if they did not meet, but since they met by such a coincidence, how could they not trick him? Thus, Lang Shiqi nodded. Everyone thought that he was going to admit defeat and hand over the cultivation technique. Only Su Lu knew that Lang Shiqi had agreed. Su Lu smiled sinisterly. Devil chi rose around his body, and a devil head that was half the height of a person appeared in the devil chi. The devil head opened its mouth wide and spat out endless devil chi. In an instant, all the nearby spirit cultivators were enveloped in the dark devil chi. Who is it? Which devil dares to be so impudent in front of us? It really is him. Attack! Suddenly, there was a burst of shouts from the devil chi. Su Lu's voice appeared in Lang Shiqi's ears again. 12 steps to the right, 7 steps forward, and 15 steps to the left to bypass the others and escape the range of the devil chi. Lang Shiqi, who was shrouded in devil chi, had quietly opened his byakugan. Everything around him could be seen at a glance. At this moment, he sneered. If he really did as Su Lu said, he could indeed leave the range of the devil chi, but he would also run to Su Lu's side. At this time, Su Lu had already picked up the strange weapon with 2 swords connected in reverse. It was obvious that if Lang Shiqi ran over in a panic, he would not have a good ending. However, Lang Shiqi still did it. When Su Lu saw that Lang Shiqi was indeed moving according to his instructions, the corners of his mouth raised into a sinister smile. When Lang Shiqi approached him, Su Lu clenched the weapon in his hand. Devil chi surged on the blade. However, what welcomed him were hundreds of cyan blade lights. When Lang Shiqi approached Su Lu, he suddenly unsheathed his cyan rain blade and instantly released a torrential downpour of blade lights. Su Lu did not expect this result. He was shocked and angry. The strange weapon in his hand spun rapidly, shattering one blade light after another. Although Lang Shiqi's flying rain blade technique did not injure Su Lu, because Su Lu counterattacked, the devil head no longer breathed in and out devil chi. The devil chi in the vicinity was dispersed by the dozens of spirit pulse realm cultivators and completely dissipated in a few breaths. Lang Shiqi's eyes flashed as he shouted, "Everyone, this person actually wants to plot against me and take the cultivation technique for himself. I promise that if you can kill this person, I will take the initiative to hand over the cultivation technique. If I go against it, I, Wuxia, will have no descendants and will never be reincarnated." Everyone was already enraged by Su Lu's sneak attack, and when they heard Lang Shiqi's words, they believed him for the time being. Of course, the most important thing was that Lang Shiqi's cultivation was too weak and could not escape from their grasp. Therefore, more than 40 spirit pulse realm cultivators, including a few in the middle stage of the spirit pulse realm, all looked at Su Lu with unfriendly expressions. Su Lu's face was ashen. He originally thought that he had fooled Lang Shiqi, but in the end, he became the target of public criticism. What made Su Lu's heart sink even more was that the 3 spirit pulse realm cultivators from Heavenly Cloud Pavilion stood up and said, "Brothers, this person is called Su Lu. He is an extremely cruel devil cultivator. Half a year ago, he and his accomplices killed our sect's elder Yu Jinyu, Luo Xiaofan of Luo Yu Manor, and Master Lu Leking of Hao Yi sect. They even slaughtered hundreds and thousands of innocent spirit pulse realm cultivators in Shangyang City. This is intolerable. If we join hands to kill this person, it can be considered as upholding justice for the heavens." When Su Lu heard this, he could not help but reveal a look of shock. "Impossible. How do you know so clearly?" When he said this, it was equivalent to admitting it in disguise. Not only him, but even Lang Shiqi was very surprised. Su Lu and the other 4 killed everyone in Bo Yuanho's tomb at the end of the day. How did the news spread? And in such detail? The person from Heavenly Cloud Pavilion sneered, "Humph, the net of heaven has a long arm. You don't know that before Master Lu died, he spread all the news through the array. Not only that, he also imprinted your auras, so no matter where you go, we can track you." So that's how it is. Lang Shiqi and Su Lu both thought so in their hearts. The people from the other sects were also filled with righteous indignation. They all pointed at Su Lu's nose and scolded righteously. "Vicious devil cultivator. You actually killed the spirit pulse realm cultivators of the various sections. You deserve to die. You actually dare to wantonly slaughter ordinary spirit pulse realm cultivators. It's simply unforgivable." Hua Xiao of the Golden Blade Hall shouted with bloodshot eyes. "You can even do such a tragic thing. I will definitely chop you into pieces." At first glance, these people looked as if they had a grudge against Su Lu for killing their father. Some of them were indeed targeting Su Lu and the others, but some of them thought that this was an opportunity. Slay demons, eliminate devils, and uphold justice on behalf of the heavens. This was a good opportunity for them to raise their sect's reputation. As long as they could kill Su Lu with their own hands and spread the news of what he had done, their reputation would definitely spread far and wide. When Lang Shiqi saw that the situation had suddenly become like this, the people from the Spirit Pulse Realm sects really turned hostile faster than flipping a book. However, he was naturally happy to see it happen. Right now, he didn't even need to make a move, and Su Lu would definitely die. Furthermore, after being interrupted by this matter, it seemed that everyone had almost forgotten about the inheritance of the cultivation technique. However, in the face of everyone's criticism, Su Lu actually laughed strangely. The others thought that he had gone crazy. Su Lu laughed. "Haha, very good, very good. Lulu Cheng actually has such a method. He can be called a formation master. However, do you really think that you can kill me?" He then looked at the people from Heavenly Cloud Pavilion and laughed sinisterly. "Since you can sense me, do you think that I am alone?" "What?" The 3 people from Heavenly Cloud Pavilion were shocked. Chapter 251. Before Su Lu could finish his sentence, 4 people in the crowd suddenly attacked. The 4 of them unleashed their monstrous demonic qi and attacked the person closest to them. Caught off guard, all of them died here. They were Su Lu's 4 accomplices. Lang Shiqi was shocked when he saw this. These devil cultivators were even stronger than half a year ago. The others were shocked, especially the 4 devil cultivators who were disguised as their fellow disciples. They found it hard to believe that their fellow disciples had been replaced. Lang Shiqi's pupils constricted slightly. He had calculated wrongly, and so had the people from Heavenly Cloud Tower. The 5 devil cultivators were originally inseparable. Since Su Lu had appeared here, the other 4 should be nearby as well. However, Lang Shiqi would never have thought that the other 4 would be able to sneak into the group of spirit cultivators. The people from Heavenly Cloud Tower were the same. They did have a way to sense devil cultivators. However, for a long time they could only sense that the other party was here, but could not pinpoint who it was. However, they had never thought that what they sensed was not an aura, but a mass of aura. The 4 devil cultivators killing people was beyond everyone's expectations. However, everyone present was the mainstay of the various spirit cultivator sects, so they immediately reacted. Hua Xiao from the Golden Blade Hall unsheathed his large blade. Immediately, a golden light shone and an extremely masculine blade intent slashed towards the devil cultivators beside him. Hua Xiao's attack was like a signal. All the spirit cultivators attacked the devil cultivators. Dozens of spirit cultivators at the spirit pulse realm attacked at the same time. The scene was not small. All kinds of spirit energy wreaked havoc in the field. Sword chi, blade intent, fist force, and palm shadows flew everywhere. Su Lu and the other 4 devil cultivators used all their strength to merge into one place. Su Lu took out the devil head, while the other 4 took out a portion of the devil corpse. After that, demonic energy coiled around them, and their originally scattered bodies actually started to combine together to form an enormous devil corpse. It was their 5 ghost devil corpse. The 5 ghost devil corpses' aura was tyrannical. It was comparable to a spirit cultivator at the 5th or 6th level of the spirit pulse realm. Hua Xiao held his golden blade and his expression became serious. At this moment, someone suddenly shouted, "Look, Zhuoqiu ran away." What? Everyone, including Su Lu, turned around and saw Zhuoqiu running away as fast as he could. The strange thing was that his speed didn't seem fast, but with every step he took, he was able to cover a distance of several feet. In the short span of a few breaths, all that was left of him was a blurry figure. The dozens of spirit cultivator, including Su Lu, were all stunned for a moment. What were all of them here for? Snatching cultivation technique inheritances. But now, the cultivation method inheritance had run away. Even though some of them were tempted and wanted to chase after them, the people of Heavenly Cloud Tower said, "These devil cultivators have killed countless people. We have to make sure that they are punished." The 3 of them were afraid. They were afraid that the others would chase after the Lung Shiqi. How could the 3 of them be a match for the 5 demonic cultivators and the 5 demonic corpses? The 4 spirit cultivator sects that had been killed by the devil cultivator also nodded and stayed. Since the demonic cultivator was able to sneak in, it meant that someone had already died in the hands of the demonic cultivator. Now, another person had been killed. In other words, 2 spirit pulse realm cultivators had died in the hands of the demonic cultivator. If they didn't take advantage of this opportunity to kill the demonic cultivator, it would be impossible for them to kill the demonic cultivator by themselves. Hua Xiao hesitated for a moment, but he also resolutely chose to stay. He said, "Everyone from the Jin Dao sect, stay and kill the demonic cultivator." Most of the people present were willing to stay, but there were also more than 10 people who didn't want to fight to the death with the demonic cultivator. In the end, they didn't have any grudges with the demonic cultivator, so why should they work so hard? It would be better to chase after the Lung Shiqi. If they could obtain the cultivation method inheritance, then they would truly soar. These people immediately chased after the demonic cultivator, no longer caring about the demonic cultivator. Leng Shiqi used the 100 Ghosts Parade and the Floating Feather Spirit Steps to the extreme, and his speed was extremely fast. With his back facing the crowd, he also activated Supercilious Eyes and immediately discovered the dozen or so people chasing after him. Among these people, there was actually a Spirit Pulse Realm cultivator. However, after chasing for the time it took for an incense stick to burn, 6 or 7 of the dozen people gave up because they were too slow. Now there were only 8 people who were still chasing after Leng Shiqi, and these 8 people all had movement techniques. Leng Shiqi was a little anxious that he couldn't shake off these people for a while. After all, his floating feather spirit steps was not a light body technique. It was actually a waste of spirit energy for him to forcefully use it to travel. If this went on for a long time, the first one to be unable to hold on would definitely be him. However, if he didn't run, he wouldn't be a match for 8 Spirit Pulse Realm cultivators. He could imitate Su Lu and create a large amount of demonic chi, then escape through the ground, but this would be equivalent to exposing his identity. Zhuoqiu was not a demonic cultivator. For a moment, he couldn't think of a good way to escape, so he could only stay in this stalemate. Fortunately, the gray spirit energy in Leng Shiqi's body was extraordinary, so he could still hold on for a period of time. After half an hour, 2 of the 8 people gave up. However, the remaining 6 people were slowly closing the gap between them and him. Leng Shiqi's face started to turn pale. Just as he was about to disregard his identity and escape through the ground, an enormous rainbow light suddenly blossomed in the sky to his right. Following this, the entire illusory spirit secret realm shook. Lang Shiqi didn't know what was happening, but the 6 people chasing after him slowed down. If I'm not wrong, that seems to be the direction of the Divine Dream Illusory Palace. The Divine Dream Illusory Palace has already been dug out, so why is there such a commotion? Could it be that another treasure has appeared? Should we go take a look? At this moment, no one said anything. It was only possible that a treasure would appear in the Divine Dream Illusory Palace, but the inheritance of the Divine Dream Palace was right in front of them. So why would they give up what was near and seek what was far away? Lang Shiqi sensed the changes in these people and a thought flashed through his mind. Then, he immediately changed direction and escaped towards the Divine Dream Illusory Palace. With such a loud commotion in the Divine Dream Illusory Palace, it would definitely attract many people. Now that Lang Shiqi's identity was sensitive, it was reasonable to say that he shouldn't go to a place with so many people. Once the news of him obtaining the inheritance spread out, almost everyone would covet his cultivation method. Lang Shiqi naturally hoped that as few people knew about it as possible, but the people chasing after him were the same. Right now, these 6 people had the highest chance of obtaining the cultivation method, but if everyone knew about Lang Shiqi, their chances would be very slim. Not good. He wants to go to the Divine Dream Illusory Palace. I'll stop him. The person who spoke was a tall middle-aged man in green robes. As soon as his voice fell, his entire body was wrapped in green spirit chi, and his speed suddenly increased by several times. He was the Cool Breeze Valley disciple known for his speed, Ning Yuan. Seeing this, Lang Shiqi's heart sank. Chapter 252. Ning Yuanjing was still hiding his strength. With his eyesight, he immediately saw that Lang Shiqi was forcefully using the movement technique as a light body technique. He definitely wouldn't be able to last long like this. He originally planned to wait for Lang Shiqi to use up most of his spirit force before capturing him. However, he didn't expect the Divine Dream Illusory Palace to happen. He definitely couldn't let Lang Shiqi escape there, so he could only erupt with his fastest speed. Lang Shiqi's heart sank to the bottom. Ning Yuanjing's eruption caught him off guard and disrupted his previous plan. Although he had several ways to escape, they would expose his identity. However, if this continued, it wouldn't be long before Ning Zhengyuan caught up to him. Just as he was hesitating whether to expose himself or not, he suddenly saw someone he had paid attention to in the White Eyes range. That person was also rushing towards the Divine Dream Illusory Palace. Most importantly, this person might be able to help him. Lang Shiqi swallowed 2 pills in a row and used all his spirit force to increase his speed. Ning Yuanjing's eyes flashed coldly. He said, "Zhuqiu, do you still want to struggle at death's door? Hand over your cultivation method and you won't have to suffer any physical pain." However, Lang Shiqi ignored him and continued to rush forward. Ning Zhengyuan fiercely yelled, "What a backbone! I hope you'll still be so stubborn after falling into my hands." The distance between the two was quickly closing. At this moment, Lang Shiqi closed his white eye because he could directly see that person's figure. That person was Lin Hui. Lin Hui was at the 7th level of the Spirit Pulse realm. Of the 6 people chasing Lang Shiqi, 5 were at the early stage of the Spirit Pulse realm, and 1 was at the intermediate stage. If Lin Hui could intervene, he might not be able to defeat the 6 people, but he could definitely stop them. What Lang Shiqi needed to do now was to convince Lin Hui to help him. Lang Shiqi was confident about this because he knew the reason why Lin Hui had entered the illusory spirit secret realm. Lin Ying's corpse had not even been cold, and it had not even been 7 days since Lin Hui participated in the contest for the illusory palace token. This must be a great pain for him. Why did he have to endure such pain and enter the illusory spirit secret realm? That was because only by entering the secret realm could he increase his strength in a short period of time. He needed to raise his strength at all costs and avenge his son. As for who the enemy was, if Lang Shiqi could guess that it was either the Li Dojo or the Su Dojo, Lin Hui would know even better. However, the masters of the 2 dojos were both at the 6th level of the spiritual pulse realm. Although Lin Hui was at the 7th level, he could not kill his opponents in the arena. He needed to be more powerful, so powerful that he could easily kill someone at the 6th level of the spiritual pulse stage. And Lang Shiqi had what Lin Hui needed the most. The moment Lang Shiqi saw Lin Hui, he shouted, "Brother Lin Hui!" Lin Hui, who was rushing towards the Divine Dream Palace, turned his head and saw two figures running towards him. His eyes flashed with surprise and he asked curiously, "You are?" Lang Shiqi quickly said, "Brother Lin, there's no time to say more. I obtained the Divine Dream Palace's technique inheritance by chance, and I'm being chased right now. Brother Lin, help me stop them, and I'm willing to share this supreme technique with you." When Lin Hui heard the words, technique inheritance, his eyes flickered for a moment, but then he became suspicious. Ning Zhangyuan also saw Lin Hui at this moment. He knew that Lin Hui was at the 7th level of the spiritual pulse stage, so his expression changed when he heard Lang Shiqi's words. He pulled out a green spiritual sword and pointed it at Lang Shiqi from afar. Instantly, a dense green sword qi whizzed out and aimed at Lang Shiqi's back. Lang Shiqi turned around, and his hands drew out strands of silver threads. These threads looked soft and fragile, but they were extremely tough. Dozens of silver threads wrapped around the green sword qi as if they were wrapped around a finger, constantly wearing down the power of the sword qi. In a few breaths, the sword qi had completely disappeared. This was the technique that Lang Shiqi had almost never used before, the 1,000 silver thread brushing hands. He had once used it in Lin Ying's room, and was afraid that Lin Hui would notice anything, so he could only use a technique that even he had never used before. Lang Shiqi flashed to Lin Hui's side, and he hurriedly cupped his fists. "Brother Lin, I'm Wuxia. As you can see, these spirit cultivator sects never put us rogue cultivators in their eyes. After knowing that I obtained the inheritance, they all came to kill me. I've already shaken off most of them, and only 5 of them are at the early stage of the spiritual pulse stage and 1 at the middle stage. As long as Brother Lin can stop them, I'll hand over the inheritance with both hands, and it can be considered as strengthening the rogue cultivator lineage." Lang Shiqi pointed out the cultivation of the people chasing him, and brought up the grudge between spirit cultivator sects and rogue cultivators. However, Lin Hui still did not speak. He knew that rogue cultivators were not easy, and because of this, he was even more unwilling to offend spirit cultivator sects before taking his revenge. Of course, the most important thing was that he did not completely believe Lang Shiqi's words. Lang Shiqi raised his index finger, and his spirit power moved. Suddenly, a 5-colored stream of light appeared and rotated continuously. "Brother Lin, the cultivation technique cannot lie. You can feel it." This 5-colored stream of light is the same as the 7-colored spirit light in the illusory spirit secret realm. Furthermore, you can choose not to believe my words, but my enemies will not lie to you. Lin Hui saw the 5-colored stream of light on Lang Shiqi's finger and was already 70% convinced. At this time, the 5 people behind Ning Zhangyuan arrived. One of them immediately shouted, "Quickly capture him and interrogate him for the inheritance of the cultivation technique." After Lin Hui heard this, he was 100% convinced. His heart was in turmoil. If he could really obtain the inheritance of the Divine Illusion Palace's cultivation technique, it would be easy to avenge his son. Lin Hui took a few steps forward, faintly protecting Lang Shiqi behind him. Ning Zhangyuan and the other 5 people frowned when they saw this. Lang Shiqi secretly let out a sigh of relief. He had made the right bet this time. As long as Lin Hui was willing to help, things would be much easier. The spirit cultivator at the middle stage of the spiritual pulse stage stepped forward and said, "Bipolar Mountain Stronghold, Qiuliang. Second-rate force, Bipolar Mountain Stronghold." He did not say much, but these 6 words had a certain degree of deterrence. Ning Zhangyuan said, "Lin Hui, I advise you not to overestimate yourself. This is not something a rogue cultivator like you can participate in." Another person agreed, "That's right. So what if you're at the 7th level of the spiritual pulse stage? Brother Qiu can stop you alone." Lin Hui still did not speak. His hands formed into claws, and a pair of huge claw shadows appeared in front of him. The claw shadows were filled with a sense of sadness. His actions represented his choice. Chapter 253. Qiuliang and the rest did not expect Lin Hui to attack them. The 6 of them were all from spirit cultivation sects, and Qiuliang even had the backing of a second-rate force. Lin Hui, a rogue cultivator with no background, dared to attack them? Furthermore, rogue cultivators were usually weaker than those of the same level. So what if Lin Hui was at the 7th level of the spiritual pulse realm? Lin Hui must have gone crazy. In fact, Lin Hui had gone crazy long ago. He had gone crazy the moment he saw Lin Ying die. However, his willpower was unusually strong. He was able to control his hatred and madness, and his strength had increased greatly because of it. Now, Lin Hui only had revenge for his son in his mind. As long as he could get the inheritance, he was willing to do anything. Lin Hui's claw shadow tore through the sky and forced the 6 people to retreat. Then, he turned and ran with Lang Shiqi in the direction of the Divine Dream Illusory Palace. He knew that he could not take down the 6 people. His goal was to protect Lang Shiqi, so he quickly thought of an expedient plan, which was to rush to the Divine Dream Illusory Palace. As long as they were there, Qiu Yang and the others would not dare to make a scene in front of so many people. Otherwise, they would not be able to get the inheritance. Lang Shiqi followed Lin Hui's footsteps and nodded secretly. Lin Hui's decision was the wisest one. Qiu Yang, Ning Zhengyuan, and the rest would not let them go so easily. They all chased after them and attacked them from the sky. Lin Hui blocked most of the attacks, and Lang Shiqi could handle the remaining 2 attacks. With Lin Hui as a strong shield, Qiu Yang and the rest could not do anything to Lang Shiqi. They could only watch as they approached the Divine Dream Illusory Palace. After about an hour, a dream-like palace shrouded in 7-colored light appeared in his field of vision, and many figures could be faintly seen around it. Qiu Yang, Ning Zhengyuan, and the rest could only stop and grit their teeth. When they were at the bottom of the cliff, they thought that Lang Shiqi was a cooked duck. But now, this duck had grown wings and flown away. Ning Zhengyuan asked with a gloomy face, "Brother Qiu, what should we do now?" Qiu Yang thought for a while and said through gritted teeth, "Let's go there too. Don't make a fuss about it yet, and wait for an opportunity to take him down." However, some people knew that Zhuo Qiuyu had entered the circle of light. The news will spread very quickly. Qiu Yang said, "Then let's do it before the news spreads. However, we have to agree that if we have the chance, we won't hold back and capture Zhuo Qiuyu with all our might. After that, we will share the legacy cultivation technique." "Alright. Let's do as Brother Qiu says." Everyone nodded in agreement. When Lang Shiqi saw that they were no longer pursuing him, he knew that they had temporarily given up on pursuing him. However, he also knew that this was only temporary. He could be considered to have bought himself a lot of time, and this period of time was the most crucial moment for him to escape. Not long after, Lang Shiqi and Lin Hui arrived at the Divine Dream Illusory Palace. The people of the Mountain Sea sect had already arrived, occupying the most advantageous position in the Divine Dream Illusory Palace. Next to them were the people from the Tang family and the Wu family. Lang Shiqi looked up and saw that the space in the Divine Dream Illusory Palace seemed to be constantly twisting, and there were even hair-thin cracks occasionally appearing. Those were the spatial cracks. Lang Shiqi had seen them before during the Blood Mist Island sky-shattering disaster. Clearly, something had happened inside the Divine Dream Illusory Palace, but he couldn't go in to investigate. At this moment, Lin Hui said, "Zhuo Qiuyu, you're temporarily safe here. I've already done what I promised you. Where's your reward? If you go back on your word, I'll make the news public, and you'll be doomed in an instant." Lang Shiqi smiled and said, "Don't worry, Brother Lin. Of course, I won't go back on my word. It's just that there are too many people here, and it's inconvenient." Lin Hui's face turned cold. "Don't play such tricks. My patience is limited." Lang Shiqi could only take out a pen and paper from his mustard seed bag and wrote something on it before handing it over. Lin Hui impatiently took it, and after looking at it for a while, his expression became unfriendly. He said softly, "Introductory section?" "That's right." Lang Shiqi gave him the introductory section of the Divine Dream Spirit Art. It was also the foundation of cultivating the 5-God flowing light art. He replied, "Brother Lin, to be honest, I did receive the inheritance of the cultivation technique. But right now, I only have the introductory section and the first level of the mental cultivation technique." "Are you lying to me?" Lin Hui's tone turned cold. Lang Shiqi shook his head and said, "No, Brother Lin is in the late stage of the spirit pulse realm. You should be able to see the profoundness of this mental cultivation technique. Just comprehending the introductory section can greatly increase my strength. Otherwise, how could I have the ability to escape from the encirclement of so many spirit cultivators and meet Brother Lin? As the saying goes, rice must be eaten mouthful by mouthful, and the road must be walked step by step. This introductory section is the foundation of cultivating the cultivation technique. I don't think I need to explain the importance of the foundation. But Brother Lin, don't worry. With my guidance, Brother Lin will be able to comprehend this cultivation technique soon. When the time comes, I will hand over the first level of the cultivation technique. Lin Hui did not say anything. Instead, the expression in his eyes changed constantly. He was judging Lung Shiqi's words. After a short while, Lin Hui's palm moved and the paper in his hand was shattered into pieces. Seeing Lin Hui's actions, Lung Shiqi smiled in his heart. He knew that Lin Hui believed him for now. If Lin Hui still wanted the first level of the cultivation technique, he would continue to protect him. In order to show his sincerity, Lung Shiqi whispered into Lin Hui's ear and told him a part of his experience in cultivating the introductory section. Lin Hui nodded his head. Although he was a rogue cultivator, his knowledge was extraordinary. He could tell that the cultivation technique that Lung Shiqi had given him was very profound and difficult to understand. With his aptitude, if there was no one to guide him, it would be difficult for him to even get started. Now that he heard Lung Shiqi talk about his experience and understanding, he was even more convinced that Lung Shiqi was telling the truth. When Qiu Liang, Ning Yuanjing, and the others saw them whispering to each other, they felt as if their hearts were being scratched by a cat's claws. At this moment, the sound of bubbles bursting came from the Divine Dream Illusory Palace, attracting everyone's attention. Lung Shiqi turned around. It turned out that the space in the Divine Dream Illusory Palace was really bursting like bubbles. However, what was revealed after the explosion was not an endless void, but another world. Everyone felt that this was unbelievable. The illusory spirit mystic realm was originally an independent space. Now, it seemed that another space had been created in this mystic realm. The second level of space. What was even more bizarre was that a majestic and pure spiritual energy actually overflowed from that space. Just a single breath was enough to make one's entire body tremble. Chapter 254. Everyone in front of the Divine Dream Palace was pleasantly surprised as they watched the changes. The illusory spirit secret realm had been opened more than a dozen times. As the core of the illusory spirit secret realm, the Divine Dream Palace had been explored countless times. In fact, every single tile and brick had been flipped over by someone. It could be said that not even a single hair was left in the Divine Dream Palace. Therefore, the people who entered the secret realm did not come here. Only a few people did not want to give up and came to try their luck. But no one expected that the Divine Dream Palace would have such a secret realm. Coincidentally, they had run into it. It was truly a stroke of good luck. As long as they waited for a while, when the space stabilized, they could go in and explore. Lung Shiqi said to Lin Hui, "Brother Lin, it seems like our luck is quite good. After we go in, why don't we work together? You get 60% and I get 40%. How about that?" Lin Hui was already hanging by Lung Shiqi's first level of the 5-God flowing light technique. Now that Lung Shiqi suggested that they work together, he did not have any objections. As for the split, Lin Hui felt that he was at a disadvantage. But thinking about how Lung Shiqi was able to escape the pursuit of dozens of people, he must be strong. Thus he agreed. Qiu Liang and the others smiled. To them, this was a glimmer of hope. The Divine Dream Palace was a different world. They could also obtain some opportunities. If they could obtain an inheritance, it would be wonderful. As time passed, the space in the Divine Dream Palace became more and more stable. More and more spirit cultivators arrived. Lung Shiqi scanned the area. There were about 260 people. I remember that there were about 300 people when we entered the secret realm. Looks like some of them are either trapped or have already died. At this moment, he suddenly remembered that there were more than 30 people attacking Su Lu and the other 4 demonic cultivators. He did not know how they were doing. In Lung Shiqi's opinion, no matter how many methods the 5 demonic cultivators had, they would not be a match for 30 Spirit Pulse Realm cultivators. Furthermore, there were Spirit Pulse Realm middle stage cultivators among them. Moreover, he was even more puzzled because he still hadn't sensed Icy Death's aura until now. Now that he was under the watchful eyes of everyone, the spiritual techniques that he could use were greatly restricted, and he couldn't fully display his abilities. It would be great if he could have a helper by his side. Unfortunately, There was still no sign of Bing Shang. Lang Shiqi muttered, "That guy didn't really die in the secret realm, did he?" He didn't see Bing Shang. Instead, he saw a black-clothed woman wearing a black veil. It was the woman who had launched a sneak attack on him when he had just entered the secret realm. When the woman saw Lang Shiqi, she glared viciously at Lang Shiqi, as though she wanted to slice off a piece of his flesh. Lang Shiqi secretly smiled and didn't bother with this woman. This was because at this time, the space within the Divine Dream Illusory Palace had completely stabilized. Everyone's eyes were filled with anticipation and excitement, but they didn't move to enter. That was because the people from the Mountain Sea sect hadn't moved yet. There were a total of 200 people present, and the Mountain Sea sect alone accounted for 50 people. This was a force that couldn't be ignored. If they didn't move, no one dared to move. Not even the Tang family and Shiju Wu. Disregarding everything else, the Sky Origin Realm Huang Baixing was sitting outside the secret realm. With the name of the Mountain Sea sect and Huang Baixing by their side, the Mountain Sea sect could do whatever they wanted in this secret realm. They had to admit defeat. The 50 Spirit Pulse Realm cultivators of the Mountain Sea sect were the first to enter the Divine Dream Illusory Palace, followed by the Tang family and Shiju Wu. The order was almost exactly the same as when they entered the Illusory Spirit Secret Realm. The division of strength was so obvious and real. When it was Qiu Liang's turn, they hesitated. If they went in first, what would they do if Lang Shiqi ran away? In the end, these people stayed behind to wait for their fellow sect members. Naturally, the others could see this. Ning Zhangyuan whispered, "Brother Qiu, why don't we wait for the others to go in, then we can attack directly?" Qiu Liang looked around and found that there were still a few people walking over. He said, "No, with Lin Hui here, we can't act rashly if we can't be sure that we can succeed in one strike. Besides, there are others coming. We'll find an opportunity after we enter." Okay. In the end, there were only a few rogue cultivators left. However, there were only 6 of them, including Lang Shiqi, Lin Hui, and the woman in the black veil. Lang Shiqi looked coldly at Qiu Liang and the others behind him, then walked into the Divine Dream Illusory Palace with Lin Hui. However, when he brushed past the woman in the black veil, she snorted coldly. Lin Hui looked at the two of them thoughtfully, but didn't say anything. When Lang Shiqi walked through the first layer of space, he felt like he was passing through a layer of ripples. After entering the second layer of space, the most obvious feeling he had was that the spirit qi was very dense. The spirit qi here was second only to the spirit spring that Lang Shiqi had experienced. Everyone who entered this place had a feeling of intoxication. If they could cultivate here, they didn't dare to imagine what kind of terrifying speed their cultivation would grow at. In addition to the dense spirit qi, the area of this space was actually not very big. Even a Spirit Pulse Realm cultivator could see the end of it. Then, Lang Shiqi began to look around. They seemed to be on a large suspended platform, because the ground under their feet was gently floating. It was a bit like sitting on a boat. On the opposite side of the suspended platform, there was a huge stone pillar that towered into the clouds. The stone pillar was about 300 to 400 feet in diameter. Above the clouds, they could vaguely see flashes of spirit qi. However, there was no path between the platform and the huge stone pillar. They had to jump off the platform to get close to the stone pillar. Lang Shiqi looked down. The bottom of the platform was also gray and misty. As for the distance, it was 100 feet high. To a Spirit Pulse Realm cultivator, this distance was nothing. Immediately, some people jumped down. However, Lang Shiqi was sensitive enough to smell a bit of death aura. This made him feel slightly uneasy. At the same time, on the other side of the cliff, Wuxia of the Golden Blade sect was panting heavily. There were more than 10 corpses lying on the ground around them. Most of them were from spirit cultivation sects, and only 3 belonged to devil cultivators. Wuxia and the others did not expect that the devil cultivators' methods were beyond their imagination. After they lost a few people, they actually let Su Lu and another devil cultivator escape. This was a great humiliation to them. After resting for a moment, Wuxia said fiercely, "Let's go to the Divine Dream Illusory Palace." Chapter 255. In the Divine Dream Illusory Palace, most of the spirit cultivators had already jumped off the high platform. Lang Shiqi and Lin Hui also jumped down together. After landing, Lang Shiqi's feet suddenly made a caw-caw sound, as if he had stepped on something. Not only him, but under Lin Hui's feet, everyone else's feet also made such a sound. For a moment, the caw-caw sound did not stop. Lang Shiqi waved his hand, dispersing the gray fog that had reached his calf, revealing what was hidden underneath. It was actually a skeleton. It was the corpse of a young man who had existed for an unknown period of time. It had already been completely weathered. Lang Shiqi had just stepped on the leg of the skeleton, and that was where the sound came from. But just now, everyone who came down had made such a sound, and these people did not have any pattern, they all fell down randomly. What did this mean? This meant that there were many skeletons buried under the gray fog. Lang Shiqi looked around and found that the gray fog covered an area of 2 to 3 miles. If there were only skeletons under the fog, how many people would have died? As if to confirm his guess, as long as someone casually took 2 steps, there would be a caw-caw sound under their feet. At this time, even he, a person with hands full of blood, could not help but feel a chill down his spine. Lang Shiqi bent down and pulled off the remains of the clothes on the skeleton. These clothes were similar to the clothes of Zhu Xinlu. He should also be a disciple of the Divine Dream Palace. He suddenly recalled the rumor that the Divine Illusion Palace had been destroyed in a single night. Seeing the current scene, Lang Shiqi was more and more convinced that the rumor was true. But how could such a powerful sect be destroyed so suddenly? This was not a third-rate sect like the Golden Wing Academy that could be destroyed so easily. It was like saying that the Mountain Sea sect was destroyed in an instant. No one would believe it. Others would only say that you were crazy. Lin Hui, who was standing beside Lang Shiqi, also frowned. He wasn't the only one. Almost everyone's initial excitement was replaced by a solemn expression. These people were all at the 4th level of the sky-human realm. None of those who could cultivate to this level were fools. They could all tell that although the spiritual energy in this place was abnormally dense, it did not look like a good place. At this time, the 50 people of the Mountain Sea sect formed a circle and sent out a palm at the same time. Their palm energy was not very strong, but it set off strong gusts of wind, blowing away most of the gray fog. When everyone saw the countless corpses under the fog, they immediately went into an uproar. A cold air rushed to everyone's head. A young spirit cultivator trembled and said, "WW, what is this place?" Spirit cultivators usually, there were many people sect, but they rarely killed people. How could they see so many dead people? As far as the eye could see, there were tens of thousands of skeletons. This was only blowing away most of the fog. There was still a part that was not counted. This place was not a paradise, but a graveyard. What happened here? Was the Divine Dream Illusory Palace really destroyed overnight? Is there really a treasure here? There won't be ghosts, right? Countless questions and guesses appeared in everyone's minds, but at this time, the top of the huge stone pillar suddenly bloomed with countless rays of treasure light. It was as if there were countless heavenly treasures, cultivation methods, and spirit weapons emitting the light of treasures. These rays of treasure light instantly dispelled the doubts in everyone's hearts. Their eyes turned red, and they rushed towards the huge stone pillar recklessly. However, the stone pillar did not have any stairs leading to the top, but for Spirit Pulse Realm spirit cultivators, they could already release their spirit chi from their bodies. Their control of spirit chi was very precise. Stepping on the stone pillar was as simple as walking on flat ground. Beside Lang Shiqi, Lin Hui also quickly stepped forward, but Lang Shiqi suddenly pulled him back. Lin Hui turned his head, a faint red light flashing in the corner of his eyes. With a bit of anger on his face, he shouted, "Let go!" Lang Shiqi said in a deep voice, "Brother Lin, what did you just see?" "Didn't you see? That was endless treasure light. There must be many treasures up there." When Lang Shiqi heard this, his expression became serious. This was because he had just felt an invisible wave invade his spirit illusion world, but it was blocked by the spirit illusion world. When he looked up, there was no endless treasure light as Lin Hui had said. 2 words immediately appeared in his mind. Illusion. The Divine Dream Palace specialized in illusions, but how strong was this illusion that could make over 200 Spirit Pulse Realm spirit cultivators fall for it? Lang Shiqi didn't dare to imagine it. He was also thankful that his spiritual power was strong enough, and he had the spirit illusion world. He also cultivated the 5 God flowing light technique, so his resistance to illusions was extremely high. He was sure that there were no treasures up there, and it was likely that there would be great danger. He glanced sideways and saw that Qiu Liang, Ning Zhengyuan, and the others who had chased after him were also rushing towards the giant stone pillar, not caring about the inheritance of his cultivation technique. At this moment, Lang Shiqi was already thinking of retreating. His main purpose in coming to the Divine Dream Palace was to escape. Now that Qiu Liang and the others were unknowingly controlled by the illusion, this was the best time for him to leave. As for the so-called opportunity, was it more important than his life? Scram. Lin Hui suddenly released the spiritual pressure of the 7th level of the Spirit Pulse realm, forcing Lang Shiqi to retreat a few steps, while he himself ran towards the stone pillar. Over 200 people ran over like crazy, and the entire space was filled with the sound of bones being crushed. Hearing this, one's heart turned cold, but no one cared. However, among these people, there were also people like Lang Shiqi who didn't move. For example, Bai Yi. At this moment, he was anxiously pulling back his fellow disciples from the Mountain Sea sect, but none of them paid attention to him. There was also Tang Wanqiu from the Tang family. The difference was that she didn't stop the people from the Tang family, because her eyes were empty, and she stood there in a daze. There was also the woman in the black veil. At this moment, she was forming a seal with both hands, and traces of devil qi were surging around her body. Lang Shiqi's gaze moved between Tang Wanqiu and the woman in the black veil, and his eyes flashed with a cold light. This seemed to be a great opportunity to kill them and steal their treasures. Tang Wanqiu was the genius of the Tang family, so she must have a lot of resources on her. The woman in the black veil had an extraordinary background, so it wouldn't be too late to kill these two people quickly before leaving. Besides Lang Shiqi, only Bai Yi was completely conscious. However, at this moment, he was trying his best to stop his fellow disciples, and some of them were even fighting with him, so he didn't have time to care about this. However, just as Lang Shiqi's killing intent rose, the pendant on his body suddenly fluctuated slightly. Lang Shiqi was slightly surprised. The pendant had a reaction, which meant that Bing Shang was nearby. However, when he looked around, he didn't see anyone, and no one jumped down from the high platform. While he was confused, a sorry figure crawled out from the pile of broken bones. The person looked to be around 30 or 40 years old, with a dark face and no beard, and his expensive clothes were tattered. Lang Shiqi didn't recognize this person, but through the pendant's reaction, he knew that this person was Bing Shang, who had been missing for a long time. Chapter 256. Although Bing Shang's body stood up, he was weak and on the verge of collapse. Lang Shiqi saw that the two women wouldn't be able to escape for a while, so he quickly rushed to Bing Shang's side and handed him a pill. Bing Shang took the pill and swallowed it without hesitation. He murmured, "Thank you. Senior brother Bing Shang, why are you here?" Lang Shiqi clearly saw Bing Shang climb up from the ground and didn't come down with them. So Bing Shang was here ahead of time. Bing Shang took a breath and said, "It's a long story. I accidentally came here." His answer was too vague, but Lang Shiqi didn't delve too much into it. Instead, he told him about his plan. Since Bing Shang appeared, Lang Shiqi naturally couldn't reveal too much of his spiritual technique. He might as well drag him along. Bing Shang looked sideways at Tang Wanqiu and the black-veiled woman. "That's Tang Wanqiu? I let her escape last time. Leave it to me." Lang Shiqi nodded. He walked towards the black-veiled woman with his Qinglin sword. The black-veiled woman wasn't in a daze like Tang Wanqiu. She was awake and was resisting the invasion of the illusion. When she saw Lang Shiqi walk over with ill intentions, her heart sank to the bottom. However, she was still affected by the illusion and couldn't move. Otherwise, she would still fall into the illusion and climb up the giant stone pillar like those people. Although she didn't know what was up there, it definitely wasn't a good idea to use this illusion to lure everyone up. She said in a deep voice, "I know you. Zhuqiu, right? There's no deep hatred between us. Why do you have to be so heartless?" Lang Shiqi's expression didn't change. He held the sword hilt as if he didn't hear her. However, just as he was about to attack, there were faint voices coming from the platform. Lang Shiqi immediately recognized one of the voices. It was Hua Zhao's voice. The people who surrounded the demonic cultivator had arrived. And the people who surrounded the demonic cultivator also knew that he had obtained the inheritance of the cultivation method. Leng Shiqi knew that things weren't good. However, they were about to come down. If he was discovered, he would be dead. While thinking, a cloud of demonic qi suddenly appeared around Leng Shiqi and enveloped him and the black-veiled woman. In the dark demonic qi, a blood centipede burrowed into the black-veiled woman's body. And an old voice entered her ears. If you don't want to die from the centipede, you'd better watch your mouth. As soon as he finished speaking, the surrounding devil qi instantly dissipated, revealing an old man in a blue robe. This was Leng Shiqi, who had changed into a human skin mask. The best way was to change Shue's face of the black-veiled woman was to kill. He wanted to kill her to silence her, but he was afraid that this black-veiled woman was not so easy to kill. Moreover, there were already people jumping down from above. He was too late. Thus, Leng Shiqi could only use the centipede curse to control her. The black-veiled woman saw this series of changes. She was extremely shocked. The person who had defeated her before was also a demonic cultivator. That meant that he hadn't used his full strength in the previous battle. The black-veiled woman began to grit her teeth again, almost breaking them. In the blink of an eye, Leng Shiqi had just retracted his demonic qi when the people on the high platform fell down one after another. When Bing Shang saw these people fall, he helplessly retreated and walked to Leng Shiqi's side. He also saw Leng Shiqi's change of identity, but of course, he wouldn't say anything. Hua Xiao and the others were also puzzled after landing. Clearly, the scene here was beyond their imagination. Then, they saw Leng Shiqi and the others. However, they only recognized Tang Wanqiu and Bai Yi. Hua Xiao and the others did not take Leng Shiqi, Bing Shang and the black-veiled woman to heart. In their eyes, it was nothing more than a grudge between rogue cultivators. They could not be bothered to care about it. Tang Wanqiu stood there straight, causing them to be puzzled, and Bai Yi actually killed his fellow sect members, causing them to be even more shocked. However, what shocked them even more was the spirit cultivator that was crazily climbing up the stone pillars. The same thought appeared in their minds. There must be treasures up there. They immediately rushed over, not wanting to be left behind. When they passed by Leng Shiqi and the black-veiled woman, Leng Shiqi stared at the black-veiled woman. When Hua Xiao and the others walked over, the black-veiled woman still did not make a sound. Leng Shiqi secretly heaved a sigh of relief. When they approached the stone pillar, Bai Yi finally noticed them. He hurriedly said, "Everyone please wait. There's danger up there." Due to Bai Ye's identity, Hua Xiao said a few polite words to him, but he did not stop. However, right at this moment, a strange change occurred in the space. The gray mist that had been sinking to the ground all this time actually soared into the sky, and a terrifying aura of death seeped out. Leng Shiqi was shocked to discover that the gray mist was clearly the aura of death that had accumulated for countless years. The overflowing aura of death instantly condensed into tens of thousands of ghosts that resembled souls. Countless ghost cries resounded throughout the entire space. This phenomenon shocked Leng Shiqi and the others, but the people on the stone pillars continued to climb up with all their might. Perhaps it was because of the appearance of the death aura, but the black-veiled woman was actually able to completely break free from the illusion, and Tang Wanqiu's eyes also lit up. However, the light in her eyes was immediately filled with deep fear. Because the tens of thousands of ghosts were all flying over. Leng Shiqi forcefully suppressed the shock in his heart and forced himself to calm down. He quickly discovered that the path back to the high platform was blocked by countless ghosts. This meant that they had no way to retreat. The miraculous thing was that there were very few ghosts on Bai Yi and Hua Zhao's side. Only a few dozen ghosts floated over. Leng Shiqi immediately shouted to Bing Shang, "Go over there." The two of them no longer cared about the black-veiled woman and ran over. However, the terrible thing was that the skeletons that were originally lying on the ground actually got up and blocked their path. "Scram!" Leng Shiqi shouted. His left hand shone with starlight, and a cold aura spread out. A majestic cold aura surged out, like a river of ice that drowned hundreds of skeletons. In the blink of an eye, the skeletons turned into ice sculptures. Leng Shiqi directly jumped up and stepped on the ice sculptures to quickly run. Bing Shang followed closely behind. When he was about to reach the end of the ice sculptures, He formed a seal with both hands. In an instant, a thick and almost solid pure white ice crystal appeared. These ice crystals continued to spread out and formed an ice path in the blink of an eye. Lang Shiqi was slightly surprised when he saw this because he discovered that the cold aura released by Bing Shang was extremely cold, far stronger than his own. Chapter 257. Although Lang Shiqi was surprised by Bing Shang's cold qi, he didn't have the time to care about it. He quickly jumped to Bai Ye's side. He and Bing Shang cooperated very well. Bing Shang was responsible for using the cold qi to form an ice path, while Lang Shiqi froze all the ghosts that approached into ice. Not long after, the two of them arrived at the stone pillar. For some reason, the ghosts seemed to be very afraid of this place, and not many of them would come over. Bai Yi, Wuxia and the rest looked at Lang Shiqi and Bing Shang strangely. In their impression, Lang Shiqi was very unfamiliar and should be a rogue cultivator. Bing Shang seemed to be from some third-rate power, but they didn't have a deep impression of him. But now it seemed that these two were clearly spirit casters, and they were both spirit casters who cultivated cold qi. As everyone knew, spirit casters weren't very strong before the four realms of heaven and man. Most of them only played a supporting role. But once a spirit caster broke through to the spirit pulse realm, there would be a qualitative change. Spirit pulse realm cultivators could leave their body with spirit qi, so they could add spirit qi to their body, so the power of their spirit technique would increase greatly. Especially when facing invisible ghosts like ghosts, ordinary swords and blades would not be able to injure them at all. Ordinary spirit cultivators could only use 30 to 40% of their strength. But spirit casters could use 100% of their strength and easily kill them. But if they were rare spirit casters, why had they never heard of them before? These two people's identities were very suspicious. However, this wasn't the time for them to think too much. They were also dealing with the ghosts while approaching the stone pillar. Lang Shiqi jumped off the ice path and turned to look. The corner of his eyebrows couldn't help but twitch. Behind him, the black-veiled woman and Tang Wanqiu were also running over on the ice path. The black-veiled woman was surrounded by devil qi flowers, while Tang Wanqiu waved her sword qi to repel the ghosts. So he and Bing Shang were paving the way for the two girls? The two girls jumped off the ice path and seemed to be in a state of shock. The black-veiled woman looked at Lang Shiqi meaningfully. Tang Wanqiu looked at Bing Shang deeply, as if she recognized his identity. But none of them said a word. They were safe for the time being, but the tens of thousands of ghosts surrounded them with death aura, followed by tens of thousands of skeletons. The Lang Shiqi group only had about 20 people in total. Surrounded by countless corpses and ghosts, they were all out of breath. A few of them were so scared that their faces turned pale and their legs went soft. They no longer looked like spirit cultivator of the fourth stage of the heaven realm. Lang Shiqi sensed that the ghosts seemed to be afraid of the stone pillar, but this fear seemed to be fading. Wuxia was the most senior and had the highest cultivation among these people. He said, "It seems that these ghosts and corpses won't rush over for a while." His words immediately calmed the others, but his expression grew heavier and heavier. Because what should he do next? Now that there was no way back, they couldn't just stay here and wait to be devoured by thousands of ghosts. One of the people in the crowd said, "Why don't we go up and take a look?" This sentence immediately moved more than half of the people. They were all late and were still thinking about the treasures above. Bai Yi immediately said, "No, you may not know this, but just now, this place invisibly caused everyone to fall into an illusion." After that, they climbed up without caring about anything. I also had the secret treasure of my sect's elders, so I didn't fall into the illusion. Hua Xiao and the rest's first reaction was that it was impossible. To cause so many spirit pulse realm cultivators to fall into an illusion in an instant, this matter was inconceivable, but looking at Bai Ye's expression, it didn't seem like he was lying. Hua Xiao turned to look at Tang Wanqiu. In terms of status and background, Tang Wanqiu was second only to Bai Yi. Tang Wanqiu's beautiful face was pale with fright. She said softly, "There was indeed an illusion attack just now. The spirit artifact that the patriarch gave me to defend against illusions almost couldn't block it." Bai Yi from a top force and Tang Wanqiu from a first-rate force had both taken out evidence at the same time. Hua Xiao said, "From the looks of it, there is something on the stone pillar that is deliberately letting us go up." The person beside him said, Senior Brother Hua, but staying here is even more dangerous. If they rush over, we will be torn to pieces in an instant. Why don't we go up and take a look? Maybe there is still a glimmer of hope. Yes. That's right. A few more people agreed. Lang Shiqi also had a headache at this moment. They were now in a dilemma. Facing countless ghosts and corpses, they would definitely not be able to rush out, but there was an unknown danger on the stone pillar. Once the ghosts and corpses came, they would definitely die. If they went up, they might have a chance of survival. But at this time, the Black Veil Woman said, "Then why don't we climb halfway?" As soon as these words were spoken, everyone was suddenly enlightened. It sounded like a solution. Lang Shiqi sensed that the ghosts and corpses were becoming more and more manic, and could rush over at any time. He made a prompt decision and stepped on the stone pillar. His body was parallel to the ground as he stepped on the pillar and walked up. He used chakra walking jutsu to walk on the stone pillar as easily as walking on the ground. When the others saw this, they also climbed up the stone pillar, but their appearance was not as beautiful as his. Just as they climbed about 100 feet, the ghosts and corpses that originally did not dare to approach rushed over. What they did not expect was that the corpses could actually climb up, and the ghosts directly flew over. This instantly ruined everyone's original plan. Fortunately, the corpses would slide down after climbing for a short distance, but they still swarmed over. Not long after, a small mountain of bones was piled up under the stone pillar. Although the ghosts could fly, it seemed that they could not fly too high. Everyone had no choice but to climb up with all their strength. But even so, there were still hundreds of ghosts flying over. Everyone had to carefully control their spiritual power to prevent themselves from falling down, and at the same time, they had to deal with the ghosts. As a result, some people panicked. In the blink of an eye, a few people fell down. They did not even have time to scream before they were swallowed by countless corpses. Bai Yi held a mountain seal in his hand, and a layer of yellow brilliance covered his whole body. All the ghosts that flew over were turned into ashes. Hua Xiao unceasingly brandished his ferocious saber aura, chopping down one specter after another. Lang Shiqi and Bing Shang were the most relaxed. They did not need to consume too much spiritual power. Cold air surged around them, and if a ghost attacked, it would be directly frozen and then fall down. Chapter 258. As Lang Shiqi and the others climbed higher and higher, the number of ghosts that could attack them decreased. However, the tens of thousands of corpses under the stone pillar unconsciously accumulated into a human ladder, slowly climbing up. Lang Shiqi could not stop. And now, there were only a dozen of them left. The rest had naturally fallen here. As they were forced up by countless ghosts, their climbing speed was very fast, so they gradually caught up to those who had climbed from the beginning. They could even faintly see the end of the stone pillar. After about half an hour, everyone arrived at the top of the stone pillar. However, the 200 people in front were controlled by the illusion technique, while Lang Shiqi and the others were forced to catch up. On top of the stone pillar was a huge circular stone platform. There were many sharp blood-colored pillars around it, and countless complicated arrays were carved on the ground. In the center of the stone platform, there was a person sitting there. To be precise, it was a skeleton sitting there. And what was different about this skeleton was that its bones were actually a faint rainbow color. At this time, someone in the group shouted, "Heavens, Divine Fantasy Spirit Stone. So many Divine Fantasy Spirit Stones. Haha, there's actually a 7th level spirit weapon, that's mine. Cultivation technique. This is actually the most suitable 8th level cultivation technique for me. Don't fight with me. Water cloud feather. The best materials for refining. I'm rich, I'm rich." Similar voices rose and fell in the crowd. Seeing this scene, Lang Shiqi knew that they were still immersed in the illusion. Because there was nothing here. And Hua Xiao and the others who came later also had a look of shock and fear. If they had come earlier, they might have been as crazy as those people. However, what was even crazier was that in the crowd, there was a disciple of Shi Ju Wu who suddenly sent out a few palm strikes, injuring several people around him. He even shouted, "You dare to steal my treasure, you're courting death. Scram, the spirit technique is mine. Humph, overestimating yourself, die." The moment he made his move, it was like a chain reaction. One spirit cultivator after another made their move. In the blink of an eye, the 200 spirit cultivators began to kill each other. They were actually killing each other for a treasure that didn't even exist. The battle between more than 200 spirit pulse realm cultivators could be said to be heaven-shaking. Sword energy flashed, palm shadows flew, and waves of violent spirit force spread in all directions. Lang Shiqi and the others couldn't even stand still. People were dying at every moment. Blood splattered and flowed everywhere. Before long, this place was filled with the smell of blood. Bai Yi, Tang Wanqiu, the black-veiled woman, and the others were all dumbfounded. Although they had extraordinary backgrounds, when had they ever seen such a scene? Even an old senior like Hua Xiao widened his eyes slightly. It was obvious that he had been provoked. Many of the people involved in the fierce battle were their fellow disciples, but now they were completely helpless and could only watch helplessly. They couldn't help but feel anxious. Hua Xiao said in a hoarse voice, "Is there any way to wake them up? If this continues, they will all die sooner or later." Lang Shiqi's eyes lit up as he observed his surroundings. Soon he discovered two strange things. First, these people were clearly fighting in a mess, but no one approached the skeleton at the center of the stone platform. Also, there was a lot of blood flowing out from the fierce battle. The air was filled with a faint smell of blood, but there wasn't much blood on the ground. Thus, Lang Shiqi kept staring at the blood on the ground. Sure enough, he saw the blood slowly seeping into the ground. What was even stranger was that the dead people didn't have any soul power floating out. Lang Shiqi had the passive skill of Hell Curse that could absorb souls, but he couldn't see any remnant souls appear. Is it the array formation here that's absorbing the power of blood and soul? What's the use after absorbing it? Lang Shiqi guessed and looked around, hoping to find some clues. The black-veiled woman pointed and said, "Look, the surrounding pillars seem to be brightening." When Lang Shiqi heard this, he saw that the sharp spear-like pillars around the stone platform were indeed glowing faintly. He clearly remembered that it wasn't like this when they first came up. Was there a connection between the disappearance of the blood and the pillars shining? Hua Xiao directly said, "Let's go destroy those pillars. Maybe that's the foundation of the formation here. After we destroy it, we might be able to wake everyone up." As soon as he finished speaking, he rushed to the nearest sharp pillar. His golden blade swept out, and the sharp golden blade slashed out and chopped the sharp pillar. With a dang sound, there was only a crack on the pillar. Hua Xiao exclaimed, "This thing is actually so hard." He was in the middle stage of the spirit pulse realm and he didn't hold back. His full strength attack only left a crack? However, the more it was like this, the more he felt that the pillar was strange. Let's try working together. Everyone felt that there was something wrong with the pillar and immediately agreed. Lang Shiqi waved his left hand and a blue circular formation appeared in front of him. A huge sword tip that was as cold as a 10,000-year-old ice cave appeared. Dozens of foot-long pure white icicles condensed around Bing Shang. Bai Yi formed a mountain seal with one hand and a sea seal with the other. He used two completely different powers at the same time. The black-veiled woman used demonic energy to condense a flower half the size of a person. In an instant, dozens of fierce spiritual techniques landed on the pillar. With a loud bang, the sharp pillar finally broke apart. But what was strange was that when the sharp pillar broke, it only let out a scream. They all looked at each other and confirmed that they didn't hear wrong. Could it be that this sharp pillar is alive? Hua Xiao shouted, "Let's try again." After a dozen breaths of time, another pillar broke apart. This time, they clearly heard a voice that was neither human nor ghost. At this moment, there was a sudden change. The remaining dozens of sharp pillars emitted waves of aura. There was resentment, death, injustice, and hatred. Then the blood on the ground disappeared without a trace. The dozens of auras gathered together and formed a huge ball of death aura. The dense death aura caused people to feel a chill all over their bodies. When this ball of death aura appeared, Lang Shiqi and the others immediately gathered together to guard against it. They were now in the same boat and had to hold together. Following that, as long as there was blood flowing out from the crowd, it would be directly absorbed by the ball of death aura. The blood of these spirit cultivators was like their nutrients. Very quickly, the number of spirit cultivators became fewer and fewer. There were only 100 people left, and the ball of death aura actually formed a human figure. Chapter 259. The human-shaped phantoms were emitting all sorts of death and resentment auras. Their bodies did not seem to have any strong spirit chi, and their bodies were slightly distorted, but they gave off a feeling of invincibility. The human-shaped phantoms suddenly laughed out loud. Ha ha ha, I've finally seen the light of day again. The strange thing was that his voice sounded like dozens of people at the same time. At the same time, there were also several different voices. Kill. Kill. I want to kill. Revenge. I want revenge. Meng Tianzong, I want to kill you. Hate, I hate. Meng Tianzong harmed me. Leng Shiqi thought that the phantoms were the amalgamation of dozens of resentment. It was probably something like a vengeful spirit. Before they died, they must have contained endless resentment, and even after 10,000 years, it was still so strong. Previously, they had used some unknown method to attach themselves to the pillars and silently suck the blood of the spirit cultivators. But Leng Shiqi and the others had destroyed 2 of the pillars, forcing them to come out early. But, who was Meng Tianzong? Bai Yi revealed a look of surprise and said, Meng Tianzong? Our sect's ancient records say that Meng Tianzong is the founder of the Divine Dream Palace, and also the Great Palace Master. Hearing the words Great Palace Master, Leng Shiqi thought of the words that Zhu Xinlu, who had passed down to him, once said. The Great Palace Master still failed. Since Meng Tianzong was the Great Palace Master he spoke of, and also the founder of the Divine Dream Palace, what did he do to make people hate him so much, and in the end he still failed? Or, it could be said that it was because he failed that he was hated, and even gave birth to a vengeful spirit after his death. In the end, it came to harm Leng Shiqi and the others. Haha, quickly become my blood food, become the nourishment of my body, this is your honor. Die, die. The vengeful spirit phantom continued to absorb the blood chi, and their figures became more and more solid, but it became even crazier. He waved his hand and shouted, Go, go and burn Meng Tianzong's bones to ashes, and let him be consigned to eternal damnation. The 100 or so spirit cultivators who were still fighting, under the control of the vengeful spirit phantom, attacked the skeleton at the same time. It turned out that the skeleton was Meng Tianzong. However, there seemed to be an invisible barrier around Meng Tianzong, which turned all the attacks into nothingness around him. Not only that, his body couldn't even take half a step forward. As for the vengeful spirit phantom, it was still controlling the spirit cultivator S to continuously attack Meng Tianzong, as if it truly hated Meng Tianzong to the core. But all of a sudden, the vengeful spirit looked at Leng Shiqi. At this moment, all the spirit cultivator who had been affected by the illusion technique were attacking Meng Tianzong's skeleton. Only Leng Shiqi and the others were standing at the side foolishly. This was too eye-catching, it was impossible not to notice them. Leng Shiqi's heart skipped a beat. Then, a crazy and eager look appeared on his face. Then, he immediately went into the crowd. Cold chi condensed around him and surged toward Meng Tianzong's corpse. He was pretending that he was also under the illusion. In a moment of desperation, Leng Shiqi thought of this method to make up the numbers. The others weren't stupid either. They quickly reacted to the situation. The first to react was the black-veiled woman. Her eyes moved, and the light in her eyes immediately faded, turning into emptiness. Then, like Leng Shiqi, she crazily rushed toward Meng Tianzong's skeleton. Next were Bing Shang, Hua Xiao, Bai Yi, and the others. Unfortunately, 2 of them were a step too slow. The vengeful spirit phantom immediately noticed the 2 of them. It opened and closed its palms, and the 2 of them suddenly exploded. Countless amounts of blood and flesh flew out, but strangely flew toward the vengeful spirit phantom. The vengeful spirit phantom opened its mouth wide and sucked in the flesh and blood of the 2 people, revealing a satisfied expression. There are actually 2 fish that escaped the net. Let's treat it as a sumptuous meal. Seeing the vengeful spirit phantom easily kill 2 spirit vein stage spirit cultivators with a wave of its hand, Leng Shiqi's heart sank. If this continued, all the spirit cultivators here would die one by one. In the end, he would also die. I have to help the others get rid of the illusion first. Leng Shiqi had once helped Hua Lingling get rid of the illusion on Blood Mist Island. The method he used was to directly use his mental force to forcefully break the illusion. However, There were more than 100 spirit cultivators here using their spirit techniques. The spirit energy around them was wreaking havoc, so there was no chance for them to get close. Although he had also cultivated a few illusion techniques, he did not know much about how to break them. He could only whisper to the people around him, "Do you have a way to break the illusion?" Just now, Lang Shiqi's method of pretending to be under the illusion could be considered to have indirectly saved the lives of the others. Therefore, the other people's attitude towards Lang Shiqi was extremely good. Hua Xiao answered first, "Sects that practice illusion techniques are extremely rare, and there is not a single one in Donglin County. Therefore, no one has studied how to break the illusion." Bai Yi continued, "The defensive item that the sect gave me can resist the illusion, but I have never heard of a method to break the illusion." The black-veiled woman hesitated for a moment before saying, "I have seen a battle between spirit cultivators who are proficient in illusion techniques. I have only heard of one method from their words." Lang Shiqi looked at the black-veiled woman in surprise. He realized that this woman's knowledge was truly extraordinary. The black-veiled woman continued, "That is to cast another illusion on the victim, and replace the previous illusion with the later illusion. Then, the caster can cancel the illusion. However, I have only heard of this method and cannot guarantee that it will succeed. Furthermore, we do not have any spirit cultivators who are proficient in illusion techniques." A trace of hesitation flashed across Lang Shiqi's eyes, but he immediately sat down cross-legged and said, "I have a way, please protect me." Hearing this, everyone was shocked, including Bing Shang. Bing Shang had seen Lang Shiqi use many kinds of spirit techniques before, but he didn't know that he could use illusion techniques. However, since Lang Shiqi had said so, he must have a way. Bing Shang was the first to stand beside Lang Shiqi and protect him. The others did not hesitate. The best way now was to help everyone remove the illusion and then work together to kill the vengeful spirit. When they were helpless, Lang Shiqi had a way to remove the illusion. At this moment, they could only choose to believe in him. The remaining people immediately formed a circle, protecting Lang Shiqi in the middle and covering his figure. Lang Shiqi closed his eyes and summoned the system. He wanted to level up his newly learned spirit technique, Falling Flowers, to the Great Perfection stage. Chapter 260. Lang Shiqi had cultivated 3 illusions before accepting the inheritance of the Zhu school. When he heard the black-veiled woman's words, he thought that one of the illusions might be able to help others dispel the illusions. That was the rank 4 spiritual technique, Falling Flowers. Falling Blossoms was a large-scale illusion. The victim would fall into a boundless and beautiful world of blossoms, while the victim would be at the mercy of others. However, Lang Shiqi had only cultivated this spiritual technique to the beginner level in the room before stopping. This level of cultivation was probably not enough to help many people dispel the illusions at the same time. Therefore, what Lang Shiqi needed to do now was to use his unlimited skill points to raise Falling Flowers to the Great Perfection realm. After a few breaths of time in the outside world, Lang Shiqi suddenly opened his eyes. Soon after, his hands started to form a seal, and his hand shadows started to fly. The black-veiled woman looked at Lang Shiqi with a strange light in her eyes. She knew that the old man in front of her was actually Zhua Qiuyu. Therefore, she was very curious. How could such a rogue cultivator be proficient in sword techniques, blade techniques, spirit techniques, and even illusions? After I get out, I will mobilize the intelligence network and investigate this Zhua Qiuyu. The black-veiled woman thought to herself, but suddenly, a petal fell on her shoulder. She focused her eyes and saw that it was a petal as black as ink. It was actually somewhat similar to her nirvana flower. Suddenly, she raised her head as if she had sensed something. She saw black petals falling from the sky like a gorgeous rain of flowers. The black-veiled woman gradually became immersed in the rain of flowers, and the light in her eyes gradually dissipated. Not only the black-veiled woman, but everyone around Lang Shiqi saw the rain of flowers. However, everyone saw a slightly different scene. Tang Wanqiu saw petals of wind that symbolized freedom, Hua Xiao saw golden petals that were filled with blade intent, and Bing Shang saw snow that filled the sky. This was the Falling Blossoms. Only Bai Yi did not fall into Lang Shiqi's illusion. It was obvious that the treasure on his body helped him resist the illusion. A portion of the spirit cultivator who had already been affected by the illusion technique started to calm down. With every breath of time that passed, more and more people started to cultivate. In a few breaths of time, more than half of the spirit cultivators were no longer crazy. Naturally, this scene could not be hidden from the Wraith Shadow. He suddenly roared and instantly locked onto Lung Shiqi. "How dare you spoil my plans?" Dang! Just as he was about to tear Lung Shiqi into pieces, Lung Shiqi shouted, "Wake up!" His shout was like a sudden clap of thunder, reverberating in the minds of everyone who had been hit by the falling blossoms. These people woke up in an instant. Where are the treasures? My treasure is gone. How did so many people die? What is that? Those who had regained consciousness were not unaware of what they had done. They were all puzzled. But now was not the time for them to be puzzled. Hua Xiao circulated his spirit energy and shouted, "There are no treasures here at all. All of you have been affected by the Wraith's illusion technique and are killing each other." Bai Yi said to a person in the crowd, "Senior brother Hebo, senior brothers, quickly come and help me kill the Wraith." Hebo was the leader of the Mountain Sea sect. He was at the 9th level of the Spirit Pulse realm. He naturally believed Bai Ye's words without a doubt. He quickly took a look and discovered that more than 10 spirit cultivators from the Mountain and Sea sect had died. He could not help but be shocked and angry, and immediately gathered the remaining 30 over spirit cultivators from the Mountain and Sea sect to attack the vengeful spirit shadow. The other people who had woken up were not stupid. They quickly understood everything. They looked at the corpses of their fellow sect members and felt a surge of blood chi in their hearts. They were not like the Mountain Sea sect. Losing a few Spirit Pulse Realm cultivators was nothing, but to them, it was a serious injury. Immediately, under the lead of the Mountain Sea sect, all the sober people charged towards the Wraith Shadow. The Wraith Shadow did not care about the Lang Shiqi anymore. He shouted ferociously, "Stop them!" Although Lang Shiqi's falling blossoms had awakened more than half of the cultivators, there were still about 40 people trapped in the illusion technique. These people, under the control of the Wraith Shadow, blocked the 100 or so people who were awake. The two groups of people immediately engaged in a chaotic battle. Although the difference in numbers between the two sides was huge, to the sober people, their opponents were all fellow sect members. Of course they could not kill them. When they fought, their hands and feet were tied. On the other hand, the people who were trapped in the illusion technique all had red eyes. It was as if they had met the enemy who killed their father and were fighting to the death. As a result, the 40 of them were actually able to stop the 100 or so people. At this time, the Wraith Shadow's body was constantly twisting, bulging out one by one. In the blink of an eye, he actually split into a human figure. However, these two figures were smaller than the original and more transparent. One of the two figures looked like an old man with a long beard and the other looked like a square-faced man. The old man's eyes were filled with endless hatred and resentment. He said crazily, "Damn it, you all deserve to die. Meng Tianzong deserves to die even more." Immediately, a surge of death energy surged around him. The death energy turned into countless tentacles and grabbed at Meng Tianzong's skeleton. At this time, the Wraith Shadow still wanted to turn Meng Tianzong into ashes. It could be seen that he really hated him to the extreme. However, when the monstrous death energy approached the skeleton, it quickly melted like snow under the sun. "Meng Tianzong, you're still so selfish even in death. I will make sure you die without a complete corpse." The long-bearded old man attacked relentlessly, while the other square-faced man's vengeful spirit pounced towards Lung Shiqi's side. The square-faced man was filled with anger. If it wasn't for Lung Shiqi's interference, their plan would have succeeded. He had to kill Lung Shiqi. Lung Shiqi's heart also tightened. He ran into the crowd and said, "Protect me. I can still help the rest break the illusion." Bai Yi and Hua Xiao nodded. They were all adults. It was Lung Shiqi who helped them break free from the illusion. The people who woke up looked at him gratefully. Then, dozens of people helped him block the square-faced man. The square-faced man waved his arms and two python-like death energy swept out. In an instant, the people closest to him were sent flying. It was unknown whether they were dead or alive. Everyone was shocked. The square-faced man's strength was far beyond their imagination. Even normal spirit aperture realm experts weren't this strong. At this time, He Bo Li shouted, Mountain Sea sect disciples, set up the 10,000 streams to the sea formation. Voila! More than 30 Mountain Sea sect disciples quickly gathered. Each of them was shining with a blue and yellow light. These lights reflected each other and gradually merged into one. Finally, they all gathered on He-Bo's body. He-Bo's spirit energy surged. In an instant, it surpassed the limit of the spirit pulse realm and was still growing. You're tuning in to the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.